We've already seen a winless streak come to a close, while our second set of the day have a winning streak come to a close. That's the question here on the final day of week number 2 of season number 10 of the SMITE Pro League. Again, congratulations to the Eldritch Hounds in our first set of the day. They find themselves a 2-0 win over the Gilded Gladiators. Gladiators still searching for their first win. And my goodness, we still got 2 best-of-3s remaining in this week of the SPL. We are in full force on our road to Masters. My name is Dolson. Gormizer is with me to talk all things SMITE. Unless you don't want to talk about SMITE, Gore. What do you want to talk about? Want to talk about SMITE?
Yeah, my brain's real stuck on SMITE mode. I feel like normally I would have had something quicker to... Bruins are playing tonight.
I'm nervous about
Game
that.
7?
I actually don't want to talk about that,
Oh, yeah?
believe it or not. I'm too nervous about it.
You want to talk about Game 6?
No, I don't want to talk about that either. Okay. I want to talk about the schedule because we've got a couple more matches remaining today. It's the Oni Warriors, the Jade Dragons, and then the Styx Ferrymen versus the Highland Ravens to end our week. We've had a lot of 2-0s, a sprinkling of 2-1 here. The Oni Warriors with the 2-1 win, the Jade Dragons with the 2-1 win, and wouldn't you guess it, Gore? Those two teams, the meat of our SMITE Pro League sandwich here on Sunday. The bread was the Hounds and the Gladiators, and the Ferrymen and the Ravens.
That's the top piece. Haven't hit the top bun yet. I'm really excited. I mentioned this to J-Mac a second ago. I'm really excited to see what this has to offer. I'm really interested because the Warriors, we've had a question around them that has just been, how long does this last? Is it going to, this run it down style, something that is just going to work forever in Season 10? Is it only going to work while teams have, a little bit more time, right, to maybe stagger out specifically new metas that are kind of innovating on that, right? Just running it down before people can figure out what it is that they should be doing.
Gore, this is actually a sneaky important matchup. Judging by the standings, and I'm no mathematician, but if the Dragons win, they're 3-1. The Oni Warriors would fall to 3-1. I have to imagine the tiebreaker would then have the Jade Dragons in first place in the Chaos side. Remember, first place in your division is what we're fighting for here. First place in order and first place in Chaos at the end of the phase go straight to SMITE Masters. The other 6 teams in the league have to fight through a qualification process. So Camelot Kings really firmly in control of the order side. Depending on what happens between Highland Ravens and Styx Ferrymen later on today. This is a big one, though. First place up for grabs on the Chaos side, and it's the Jade Dragons maybe playing with a bit more consistency compared to the old Jade Dragons. Not necessarily. Oni Warriors are the consistent team from what we've seen. But, Gore, I think the Jade Dragons, they're building on a lot of good now.
For sure.
And become a very formidable opponent.
The thing I was worried about this team coming into it, and I think a lot of people was if we were going to see Vote, Dardez, Nika continue being in the same slot that we had seen in years past. But talking about it, we've all really highlighted the fact that support, jungle, that can really change up the intrinsic identity of a team, right? I mean, at that point, only one of your frontliners is still the same if you're looking at the old Warriors or SSG if you go back years beyond that, as well as having a new kind of jungle identity. We've talked about similarities between Cuvo and LASBRA, but they're still different people, still bring different things into the team. And I think what we've gotten to see is this team start out maybe in a little, I don't even want to call it a rough patch, but start out having some of those older tendencies and really starting to find themselves, as the games went on, as scrims went on. You can really find, I think that now, week 2, what we're about to see is a different team than what we saw even at the very beginning of the kickoff tournament. And I think that's the kind of improvement I always look for in a team like this. And I'm really excited. Look, Mike teams do well at the beginning of the year, and this one so far hasn't been an exception.
Look, if the Jade Dragons start to spin up some momentum, some consistency, this is a very threatening squad and a very threatening roster. You mentioned Mike teams. Well, you got to have Mike on your team to be a Mike team. And not only is he on the Jade Dragons, he's standing by for a pregame interview.
On the mic.
It's not only with Mike, it's a Mike team, and we got a Mike interview with a Mike. So it's Mike with a Mike. Check.
Did they hear that?
Can they hear? I hope they can hear that.
Oh.
I see the taps there.
My
Mike, we
apologies.
got to talk to you a little bit just yesterday, coming off of your win up against the Highland Ravens. Now you're going against the Oni Warriors, a team that you do have to play in division. You got to play them twice over the course of the season. Or at least this phase. So how important is a win today up against the Oni Warriors? Not just to stop their win streak, but also because you're gonna have to play these guys a couple of times.
Yeah, the way things are shaping out right now, it probably is our most important matchup, these 2 sets that we have against them in the the round robin or group play, whatever you want to call it. I don't know words. But yeah, it probably is our 2 most important matchups. So at least getting a split would be really nice. Ideally, if we can win both those sets, I think we're feeling good about having a good seed going into the tournament. But really, I'm just out here trying to improve. I just want to get better, have good practice, good sets, and just be the best we can be.
Yeah, be the best, kind of improve, get yourself set up for that Masters event later on in the phase at least. Now, Mike, if you were to look over at the Oni Warriors roster and I were to ask you, who would you say is the biggest threat on that team? What would your answer be? And maybe give a little reason to why.
It's definitely Daniel. He has been my GOAT for a little bit longer than a year now. He's just a really talented little guy. He's not actually a little guy. He's actually quite built. Very charismatic, awesome dude all around. Great SMITE player, and it's always going to be fun playing against him.
Now, if I were to ask you the opposite question, who would you maybe kind of pigeon as maybe the weak link? And that might be a hard one to find on the Oni Warriors roster.
No, it's very easy. It's very
really?
easy. Yeah, very easy to find. I would also say it is Daniel. The main reason for that being is he can be a goofball, bit of a troll, bit of an idiot. Not very smart as a human or SMITE player. And a person that I really hated last year, so I think I'm really looking to target him.
So would you say that, going up against the Oni Warriors, that would be the area that you personally and maybe your team should focus out to try and find a win up against them?
Yeah, I just think the team is carried by Daniel. He's the only good player on the team, so yeah.
Okay, so maybe some focus out into the mid lane. Mike, projections maybe into the opposite division of you. You only get to play against the Order side one time throughout this phase. Kings are already on a hot streak over to there.
Yeah.
Seen the strengths of the Highland Ravens of the year able to stop their win streak. Maybe some predictions on the opposite side, who you might be expecting to kind of take that top seed.
It looks like the Kings so far. Eventually what goes up must come down. They haven't come down yet. At some point they will come down. I've experienced that many times throughout my career. So gravity claims everyone at the end of the day. So they will be impacted by gravity. Let's just call it what it is now. The Ravens, after their loss yesterday, they look pretty washed. I think it'll be difficult for them to improve going forward. So yeah, I'm really looking at the Ferrymen because they have Baskin, and it's a Baskin Revenge Tour. So
should be a lot of fun seeing what shakes up on the Order side. And over here in the Chaos Division, Mike, thanks for coming by for the interview. I'll let you back with the team. We'll throw it back to the desk.
Can I
Keep
say
it going.
one more thing?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know I did the post game yesterday, guys.
Right.
Neither you or me really want me to do this. I'm just here so I don't get fined. So it is what it is. Bye.
Thanks, Mike.
What a lovely human. I love PolarBearMike.
Oh, yeah.
What's the
Career like a sine wave, that guy.
That's right. Well, he would agree. That's literally what he.
That's why I'm just saying what he said, but with math stuff.
And by his own words, this is one of the 2 very important matchups in this division. Sorry, you caught me up at the end of the interview. One of the 2 really important matchups that the Jade Dragons are going to have in the Chaos side, just the way things are shaping up by his own words. And it does seem like a 2-horse race right now between the Jade Dragons and the Oni Warriors. So an important win here for the Jade Dragons, or a continued win for the Oni Warriors on the flip side, because Gore, they are 3-0 right now. The Jade Dragons are 2-1. The Oni Warriors would be 2 games free in first place with a head-to-head over the Jade Dragons should they win this set.
And that's, I think, one of the bigger things, right? You're not just looking at winning. We talk a lot about these out-of-division matchups because of the fact that you only get that one shot, and that's 4 wins, theoretically, that you can rack up that the others in your division just might not get. So I think those have been very important for the Warriors. I do think that this is another one that is really big because, like you said, not only does it maybe set the Warriors up to be further ahead, I think it might set a little bit more of a precedent for what this group, and at least what I'm starting to expect, put a lot of weight on the Dragons' shoulders to perform, because if you want to regain a first place after, assuming you lose this set, all of a sudden it's all about every set, not only in division but out of division. You're looking for every win that you can, but then the second time you face this team, you got to beat them better than you did the first time. That's ideally right. Like if this goes 3, you want to beat them again in 2 to get some of maybe the map plus minus. A lot of really niche interactions that can come. And so in the ideal world for the Dragons, they just win this. In the ideal world for the Warriors, they never have to come down. As Mike had said, maybe this is their rising action, right? And we haven't seen the peak just yet. And that's kind of what I'm keeping my eyes on for them. I think they've been really solid. Definitely a team that has shown versatility. Definitely a team that doesn't mind messing around a little bit in game 2s and then inevitably go into a game 3 just for funsies. So I do think that that's something that theoretically you can clean up. Sometimes it has been, in their words, trolling. Sometimes it has been just good play from the other team. I think the Dragons are one of those teams that'll force it to be good play. So they need to come out swinging here, and I think they've got a lot of, for lack of a better term, tools in their arsenal. And I'm really looking forward to what they bring out today, and really looking forward to some of the matchups, right? I think that Panitom and LASBRA is going to be a really fun jungle, just how well they handle the map, things like that. But I also think the solo lane is going to be very important. Sot's been on a tear, Nika's one of the best that we've seen. Still blows my mind that Nika has not won a ring, considering consistently for years, even on teams where they're losing, people will put Nika in like the top 3, top 5 at the minimum for solo lane.
I'm thinking back to, what was the Oni homies during their qualifier chance? Was that last year? They had to re-qualify into the SPL. And Nika gets a penta. It's like Bastet full damage solo, and it's working out. I doubt we'll see Bastet solo, but maybe picks and bans for game 1 will tell us exactly where the priority lands for both of these two teams. I think, Gore, the Oni Warriors are proving to be a very difficult team to pick ban against because you're worried about Pegon, you're worried about Panitom. Awesome Jake has a few pocket picks. SOT can play just about anything. Netrioid comfortable on all the hunters. Jade Dragons have a more established individual meta, it feels like. Serket being one of them for LASBRA, and I think Panitom or Pegon can play the Hebo and a smart ban then from the Jade Dragons.
Yeah, the Hebo has gravitated to the top of most banned against the Warriors, and I expect it to stay there, considering, like you said, not only do 2 of their players play it, but they both play it really well, and it's a little obnoxious, if you ask me, right? I mean, we saw some really nasty plays against the Kings from Pegon on that pick. Nox is also pretty high up there, specifically because Jake exists, right? So far, I mean, I'm looking at this. Aphrodite is the 3rd highest on the versus Warriors. This is just from last week. I haven't put in, I believe, yesterday's games in just yet. A couple of days ago, games in just yet for at least my sheets. But keeping that, I think, in perspective, it is very much a, here's what the Warriors are really great at, and here's what we deal with. So instead, kind of looking at what has beat them, the Vamana, which is a really good ban from them. Marty has also been on that list, so another really good ban from them. And then, like you said, the Serket, who is on that list, only played against him once so far, at least last week, something that LASBRA's played really well. So I like that it's limiting in totality what the Dragons are going to be able to bring. And then you start looking at regular meta stuff. And I'm going to ignore some of the pick ban percentages, instead tell you this wild thing that I found when I accidentally clicked gods and KDA instead of players. Izanami across 4 games has a 22.5 KDA.
That's just across all SPL games so far this year, so no individual
12,
player.
1, and 21.
One of those games was Netrioid. Doesn't look like it'll be Netrioid.
Actually, I think 2 of them have been Netrioid, now that I'm thinking about it.
Played him a couple times. Iza's been there in the pick department. Worth mentioning with LASBRA, specifically with Serket. LASBRA has played Serket 4 times in the last 6 games, has gone 6-1, 6-1, 6-2, and then a 4-5 game. But that 4-5 game was a win, and 2 of those 6 kill games were losses. Also a 6-0 game on Hunbats.
So what you're saying is if he doesn't feed his brains out, his team's going to lose. Well, I guess I think calling a 4-5 feed your brains out is a little that's a little much on my part.
If he's wildly positive with 6 kills, then it's bad for the Jade Dragons. No, but LASBRA is diversified, right? A 6-0 game on a Hunbats, 4-3 game on a Hebo. Won't be able to play the Hebo, but can play the Hunbats. Sustain, healing, Gore for the Jade Dragons in their first 2 picks. The Hell, and then Cupid for the first time in Season 10.
Now, my big question mark, what Cupid are we going to see? Votes Cupid seems a little more likely. I cannot see, especially when it's someone like Cupid who is and capable of being a little more ability-based, can never count out Dardez, and so I think that that's worth throwing out there, even though Cupid mid is not necessarily a go-to. I think that it gives me enough pause that I'm curious about it.
Yeah.
And it's also because we have seen a pretty strict, maybe not strict, but somewhat strict tier list. Marty has been highly valued, then Kern, then Ishtar, then Ram, then anybody else. So the fact that Cupid gets locked in that high up, knowing that we've seen, I believe, the Dragons go towards some of these weirder picks in mid, not even weirder picks, Dardez picks in mid, could definitely give a little bit of, not viability, leeway to the Dragons. I'm also going to go ahead and say I wouldn't be surprised if it's Vote, because Vote has described himself as someone who likes to just sit in lane until late game, then come in and get things done. And Cupid can do that pretty well. Can also find some decent matching or decent shots against the Cernunnos. I'm really excited to watch that 1v1 if it comes down to it between Vote and Netrioid.
We've already seen some 1v1s today, Gore, in our first set. Big Porsche Coast taking it to Stu once or twice. Saw some jungle 1v1s.
Mid solos. I was all over the place.
I'm all for more of it. I'm all for more of it. Cthulhu. Gore, I'm interested in what Cthulhu's win rate is, if you can pull that up for me, because although depending on when you've last updated.
Do you mean like just this year?
Yeah, in season 10.
Yeah. Keep it relevant.
Yep. I mean, all time, I guess there've been heavy Cthulhu metas.
7.3 KDA, 33% win rate.
Gotcha.
So
okay,
he does well. He just doesn't win.
He doesn't win. Understood. Because I feel like I remember seeing a couple Cthulhu games where maybe it's the two that he did not win.
Are falling into place.
Where it just was not all that impactful. 2 Hera games. I have to imagine Dardez has played at least one of those. None of them a win. But this is what I talk about when I say the Jade Dragons have their very specific god pools, right? This is the Dardez pick through and through, and it's good for him, but has not won yet this year.
Yeah, honestly, it's one that I'm always excited to see, but like you said, it's just the question of whether or not it can stand up, especially since you don't know what you're matching into. It's relatively safe though, right? Like, I mean, you know what you're getting from Hera. You've got a good polymorph, pretty consistent. That's going to give you some self-peel. Argus is honestly maybe more of the god than Hera is in a lot of moments and what you see. So I think that there are plenty of opportunities for this to be good for the Dragons. I also could see it just being a bog standard. We're trying to save our jungle pick, and we don't want to reveal that too soon. We don't want you to have 2 counter picks for that, especially since we already know Kern's pretty safe. Also been doing well overall. I think he's 2-1 when the Warriors are playing him. It gives you something that can survive whatever they lock in for the jungle. Gives you the right amount of hedging your bet while still leaning into Dardez's god pool. And doesn't reveal what LASBRA is going for too early on. Lets him get a full view of the team before you go for that last pick.
Morrigan for Pegon. Followed by Bakasura for Panitom. Playmaking is usually how we describe these Oni Warriors players. In the past, Bakasura would have been a bit more far-fetched score. But actually had a really good game despite the loss for Kirmi in the game we had just watched. And so 50% win rate across 2 games, won 1, lost 1. Very well could have been a win. Was certainly not at the feet of the Bakasura.
Yeah.
Very threatening option for Panitom. It's going to go up against the Nemesis for LASBRA.
And it's not as common as like the Hebo, especially not lately, but after the way Panitom played it at the kickoff was a very high ban against the Warriors to begin with. Definitely had people worried just because Panitom on this pick looks incredible. And I think you have what you need. So one of the things we've always talked about in the past for Cthulhu is like having a Nemesis to maybe help counter and burn him down a little quicker. Things like Merlin help that because you can shred through tank health bars. They don't have either of those on their side, right? But Bakasura can do a lot in terms of AA damage. You can link that up with like a Cernunnos. Then all of a sudden you can actually in-game link it up with like an Aphrodite. You're tanky enough to jump in. You could go for that fight. Maybe make things go your way, try to deal with the Cthulhu in a way that maybe Nika isn't prepared for here. I have a lot of hopes for the Warriors here. I think this draft plays into their strengths. It is a run it down, kill you dead kind of draft. It can win team fights. It does well in a 5v5. They all do well individually, except maybe Aphrodite, but that's Jake playing it. You don't need to be doing well individually. You're supposed to be linked up with somebody else. And so I do think that they have a lot of play potential over here. Team fight looks really good for the Dragons, though, right? Good healing. Good. Cthulhu immediately makes things go in your favor, right? Very good disruption, very good distraction factor, and that Nemesis is really good as what we've seen from LASBRA in the past at diving deep into the back, shredding through health bars, and specifically finding one of those really, really big picks. So I have to give a lot of credit over to the Dragons. I think that if they can make it towards some of those late fights, they're going to be just fine. They're going to be able to keep even. If the Warriors start to pull ahead, though, they might have some stutter steps along the way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of a world here where it's Cthulhu and Argus doing the stumbling down the front line. You're not going to get a true double Cthulhu composition because you don't have the Morrigan, but you can.
In fact, in theory, you're going to be playing
like
into a Cthulhu as well.
Right. Is that the obvious transformation in your mind? I mean, it's one of the best.
I mean, honestly, I think there's a few that are really solid. Cthulhu's just good team fight-wise, right? Like, I think that it's always going to give you a lot. If you think you're fast enough, transforming into like an Aphrodite could be just a real pain in the ass because all of a sudden you've got 4 Undyings that are there, right? You can just pull everybody out. That one's a very niche transformation, I think. Bakasura could be big if he gets to the transformation, but I'm looking at the Cthulhu and he sends pretty much above and beyond as the consistent. I'm going to become that guy, turn for that into team fights. As a general rule of thumb, if you're chasing people down, Baka and Nemesis start to come into the equation.
It's niche, but I want to see that double Aphrodite now. We'll see. It's a battle for first in the Chaos Division, and it starts here in game number 1 with J-Mac in Mifflin.
It is an undefeated Oni Warriors and a Jade Dragons on the rise to see who may be able to take that first seed spot after a win today. The Jade Dragons, if they could find defeat against the Oni Warriors, would take that seeding. Otherwise, the Oni Warriors could remain undefeated still at 4-0 at the top. It's J-Mac, Mifflin, and Doug for game number 1 between the Warriors and the Dragons. And this might be, Mifflin, one of the more standard compositions we've been seeing from the Oni Warriors as of recent. Mostly have been seeing a lot of things like mage solos or hunters in the mid lane for this team, but Oni Warriors reeling it back just a bit in this first game.
Standard in concept and in selection, but perhaps not in execution. The Oni Warrior is always a team that I think you can expect to play a very fast early game. The tools maybe less for that early game speed here for the Oni Warriors, but certainly still there. Netrioid's got high pressure on the Cern. Panitom, we've seen what he's been able to accomplish on the Bakasura. That is a pick that can really get involved early on. So I think certainly the propensity and capacity to play the standard, or the standard for the Oni Warriors, if not the standard of the league. The Jade Dragons, on the other hand, it seems to me that the idea they had come up with is something that we've talked about a good deal on the desk. How do you beat this expedient, hyper run-it-down style? Maybe you want to fight fire with fire, meet them in the early game, or maybe you want to draft for the late. Looking at the Jade Dragons, I think they have gone with the latter. This is a very strong late-game team fight draft.
Oni Warriors, as mentioned, known for their early game prowess. Some of the faster games so far this season have been to the hands of the Oni Warriors, and some of the most dominant games we've seen as well. I see Panitom on this Bakasura, and I get flashbacks to his game during the kickoff where he's standing in enemy lines inside their base going for kills. Maybe some help to Pegon now. He's holding on to that stun for a while. Does get LASBRA, but now Panitom trying to turn it right back to him. A jump on top, just off the mark. And had that connected, maybe Panitom keeps going forward.
Yeah, I mean, you would have got the jump damage as well as the Dark Omen damage explosion from Pegon. Could have been just enough there, but slightly off the mark. We'll have to let that one go. Panitom, I think, going to be very powerful throughout the early game. When you max out Butcher Blades, you get the free power. Takedowns had some buffs recently, some additional effects on the leap, as well as just that passive. I think that is one of the primary strengths of Bakasura that goes a bit overlooked. When you stack it up, it's 3 stacks by killing minions. You get additional attack speed and movement speed. Makes it so hard to escape, especially in that early game, especially if you're going down the katana tree, stacking up even more movement speed. So keep your eyes on him. Panitom's certainly the playmaker here for the Warriors.
LASBRA and now Panitom join the left side. It's going to be a 3v3 at the shield buff. Heals from Mike. Blink by Panitom to the back. No ultimates available as it's only level 3s. Fast dash from the Dragons will get them out of danger. LASBRA, though, does miss out on being healed up by Mike. Turn and burn maybe onto Panitom if this stuns, and it does. Slice and dice and an auto after LASBRA strikes first blood. Netrioid not going to continue the fight after. Instead, dashes away. But now might be in danger. Another heart bomb is there. Netrioid goes down. It's 2 for the Dragons.
Yeah, the Oni Warriors, I think, just had a bit of a struggle on disengage there. Panitom and Jake body block each other for about a full second. Allows the Jade Dragons the opportunity to go for that immediate turn. Once Panitom uses the leap, he's dead to rights, I think. Those abilities were coming back up for the Dragons. The slow from LASBRA, the stun from Vote, and just the raw damage output from PBM's Hell. So overzealous in the initiation are the Oni Warriors, and the Jade Dragons with a reactionary style able to find a punish. Mike, though, is completely here. This is dangerous.
Well, knocked back by Jake. Connects to Netrioid. Gets another kiss right back. Mike doesn't have enough mana for any spells, but instead We'll get some else body blocking by Vote to keep Jake back. Had Vote not shown up, could have been a kill onto the Hell, but Mike will live through at the end of the day thanks to the good merits of Vote. But now it's Jake who's walking up to try and go for the invade, but wisely the Jade Dragons, they'll pull that purple buff behind the tower.
Yeah, pull it behind the tower. If Jake continues moving forward, pull it into the tower. You sacrifice some farm, but you at least grab the experience. Jake, not going to take that bait, perhaps concerned about a rotation from LASBRA again. No one had seen him on map for about 20 seconds. Will wisely decide to back himself up there. The Jade Dragons do not need to keep up this pace. The Jade Dragons do not need to continue looking for fights. They do not need to look to punish the Oni Warriors, and they don't even necessarily need to go for invades, J-Mac. Their late game team fight is so strong that I think resting on your laurels might just be the best answer. Can't fumble if you're not playing, right? So might as well farm it up throughout the early. And already with about 1,000 gold in their pocket, it'd take a while for the Oni Warriors, even if they were to control every single bit of the macro. It'd take them a good long while to close up that gap.
Panitom can certainly try and expedite that process. Takes down the mid Harpies and the roaming Harpies on the right side of the map as well. And he can continue to make his movement through the jungle. He's got Pegon right by him the entire time, so a lot of shared experience between the two. Try and help Pegon get back up as well. Make sure that Pegon can stay even with Dardez. In this Morrigan, we've seen it a couple of times so far from the Oni Warriors. More often, it's maybe strangely been in the hands of SOT compared to Pegon, at least this season. But seeing it back on Pegon, and really maybe one of the only teams, Mifflin, that is still playing this Morrigan selection frequently.
Yeah, I mean, it's got high damage output, really good potential to rotate towards these side lanes. Surprisingly mobile is the Morrigan. But more so, I think it's the playmaking nature of this pick. The ability to be that solo agent, be an assassin in the back line, find that one-man stun into immediate damage combo. Generally, we'll see a Polynomicon a little bit later as well, just to even further enhance that burst. Makes it really difficult for the Jade Dragons to know exactly where Pegon's going to be. It makes the job of LASBRA a little bit more difficult since, for the most part, assassins are just hunting the enemy mage or hunting the enemy hunter in these late game fights. If you can't see him, and you can't because Pegon will be invisible, might make your job a bit more difficult. Seems to me it'll be Doomorb in the first slot for Pegon, even further pushing that mobility. We know he loves getting active towards these side lanes, especially in the early. But looking at the side lanes, are you going to kill Cthulhu? Probably not. Can you kill Vote? Maybe, but if PBM's there, it'd be real hard.
So in that case then for Pegon and maybe even Panitom, you mentioned on the difficulty to kill Cthulhu, taking down Nika in the solo lane. Maybe hard in the 2v2 on the left side of the map, so does that maybe kind of put a little bit of weight on Pegon Panitom to maybe focus out this mid lane instead, try and catch Dardez off guard or maybe LASBRA in the jungle?
You could potentially catch Dardez in particular. You're going to have a much harder time catching him in lane, though. You want to catch him when he rotates towards mid camps or if he's on his own red buff. Utilize that invisibility to close gap, that stun. Panitom afterward should be able to lock him down with the slows. So I think you're right. Mid lane probably the place that they would look to put their pressure. Otherwise, because you're the Morrigan, you have similar team fight capacity to the Jade Dragons in the late game. So long as Pegon is able to keep his head above water, keep farming up, he'll always have that base stance to rely on, but a transformation into Nika would just absolutely dominate. And something I think the desk perhaps doesn't bring up there is the transformation into SOT, especially throughout this early game. Guan Yu is so good for that exact situation I'm talking about, the invades on red buff, that I think it could be something we see pretty shortly. It's mostly contingent on Panitom's power curves. You probably won't see Pegon acting on his own for a while. Once Panitom gets a little bit more damage stacked up in build, then these two, Pegon and Panitom, can really start to play together.
Jade Dragons have done a solid job of slowing down this game and specifically slowing down the Oni Warriors, SOT. They use ultimate. Thought maybe a commitment to Nika, but maybe realizing his health not in the best position to try and go for a fight. And with no vision on LASBRA as well. Just used it to clear out the wave and back away. 2v2 in the duo lane. It's going favorable for the Oni Warriors until that heal from PBM goes through and the hearts from Vote. Such a heavy sustain lane that the Jade Dragons have built themselves up for in this duo lane.
I mean, sustain across the map, right? Even in the team fight, you're going to add Cthulhu to that list of AoE healing. So the Oni Warriors perhaps required to pick up an Ankh. Transformation into Nemesis. Perhaps concerned that the Polymorph would have connected. Tries to retreat and reinitiate. Pegon just comes up empty. Changeling. Used, but no value. At least avoids the death to LASBRA. I'm not sure he realized LASBRA is hovering so close by on that right-hand side, but I think LASBRA will continue hovering. Now that Changeling's off the map for 2 or 3 minutes, that's a pretty decent target in mid.
Maybe resetting Argus aggro, possibly with it. So that way maybe LASBRA can't dive under that tower.
Maybe.
To go through. Either way, Pegon down on the ultimate for a couple of minutes. Let's see when that next opportunity does open up for the Oni Warriors in a potential mid fight. And maybe not only mid, it'll be on the left side. Vote has already used his beads, and Panitom will show up for the party. We'll blink right past a couple of autos on the Vote, and ultimate drop through. Could mean a commit to Mike. The minions walk in. A couple more autos needed, but not a full commit from the Oni Warriors. They'll take their one and back away.
Yeah, Panitom wanted his minions desperately to walk into the tower and pull aggro so he could close a little bit more gap on a Mike. Couldn't do so. I saw him briefly consider walking in himself, but Jake was connected to Netrioid and had just used the kiss previously to stun, so had to wait a bit longer. Mike, though, sticks around.
And Mike will go down. This one to Netrioid. Credit for the kill, but with Panitom sticking by, invades the purple buff and gets the kill that he was aiming for just prior. The Oni Warriors have now tied the game back up, not just in kills, but also in gold and experience, Mifflin. In fact, even taking a slight XP lead over the Jade Dragons with this.
Yeah, and the Oni Warriors love playing through this dual lane pressure as well. So often, we see Jake stick around in lane until the tower goes down. Now that Tier 1 and left is gone, I imagine for the first time, 10 minutes in, by the way, we'll have the support start to rotate out of lane. Yeah, this is a non-standard pace between these teams. Perhaps Mike sticking around is a concentrated effort to try and prevent the Oni Warriors' signature push the tower, rotate out. It didn't seem to work, though, not with that rotation from Panitom. So keep your eyes on Jake. He could still stick to this dual lane, try and play through that pressure, try and match the sustain that Mike and Vote have got in lane. But I'm not so certain that he needs to, and it seems like Pegon has been stuck inside of his tower for the last 4 minutes. Could need some help there.
We'll rotate out to Pyro. Dardez on the way. Argus drops on top of Panitom. He'll be able to jump away. Pegon transforms and immediately gets polymorphed after. Has to double dash away, but LASBRA's got the chase. Ultimate from Jake, just to guarantee that Pegon can make it out of the team fight. He'll de-transform back, and now it's the Dragons who can pull Pyro.
I'm surprised. It's always this transformation into Nemesis. Doesn't really get a whole lot accomplished this time either. Does at least survive as SOT lines up against the Pyro. The Jade Dragons confirm it. Should be a disengage, but the Oni Warriors, they've got chase on the mine. SOT, though, calls him off. Had access to that cavalry charge. Holds on to it nonetheless. And it's the Jade Dragons. A small win. TKO on a Pegon. Take the Undying Love off of Jake. Take the objective immediately after.
Mike will walk back and pick up the runic bomb that was left on the ground after the scattering team fight that attempted to break out. The Jade Dragons get Pyro. Now Oni Warriors, they'll answer back with Gold Fury. All the Dragons on the right and mid of the map. No one with vision around the Fury pit. The Oni Warriors, they answer back with an objective of their own to try and keep up their pacing that they just established in duo.
So far, have been able to nurse that 1,000 lead. The Jade Dragons, not incurring too much risk, though. Have not been able to group up as 5 and seem pretty happy with that trade. It's pretty standard in the SPL. We've seen that a fair deal. One team goes for Pyro. The immediate answer is the Gold Fury on the other side. What do you do with the runic bomb? That's where you make that delineation of whether or not it was valuable to trade out the Pyromancer. Mike does head back, pick up the bomb as well. Could be time to start leveraging some of that pressure. Tier 1 and mid, the most valuable. Could really open up the map if the Jade Dragons see an opportunity. And I think they've got the potential to siege it. I mean, Pegon's been stuck in the tower. The Morrigan is not very good at clearing the wave. And Panitom, for the most part, has been playing around these side lanes. Jake finally starting to be a little bit more active in mid, though. Might alleviate some of that pressure. But regardless, I think the Jade Dragons certainly in a position now where they could attempt to push this Tier 1.
Netrioid's tower weakened. Thought for a moment Last was going to rotate over to duo. Try and put some pressure on Netrioid. He'll be able to sit comfortably under his tier 1 tower for the time being.
Dardez hits hard.
He does hit really hard right now. It really just feels like these 2 item combos, this double item power spike for mages, has just amplified the amount of early game damage they're able to do.
Yeah, early game, mid game, and late game. Their items are just better now.
It just starts earlier now.
It just starts a little bit earlier, so I think you're right. Power spikes hit, but on both sides, Pegon and Dardez, Doom Orb, Spear of Desolation finished up. Perhaps that additional CDR should probably help out Dardez a little bit more. Seems like he's a bit more active in the poke, been tossing out that polymorph consistently. Vote knocks down the tier 1 on left. No fight back from the Oni Warriors there, so Gold, the battle continues. Keeps it at a stalemate as we crest that 14-minute mark. But I've just got so much more confidence in this Jade Dragons composition in a 5-on-5. So when you evaluate the early game, if you're operating the assumption that I am, that the Oni Warriors probably get outscaled a bit here, you really want to see them find a bit more of a lead throughout the early, find a little bit more pressure on map. If you're an Oni Warriors fan, Jade Dragons fans, I'd imagine pretty happy with the pace so far.
Dead even 14 minutes in. Kills, gold, and XP as well. Just bouncing between the 2. The Oni Warriors setting up for a gank on Vote. Unsure if Vote knows if they're standing by. Based on the way he's moving, he feels like something's ready to go, and unfortunately he's walked right in, but dashes into a wall, gets caught out, and Panitom will jump down in. The 3-man rotation of the Warriors pays off as they find their pick.
And Panitom's already starting to look pretty tanky when he's connected with Jake there, that Gauntlet of Thieves Prophetic Cloak. Putting in some work. PBM steps up, maybe too far. Cleanse is good. Will make his way out of there. Had Panitom still at ultimate, maybe PBM in a little bit more trouble. I wonder what the Oni Warriors are up to here. That rotation of wave, enough threat on map to force a rotation from Dardez. So vacates the mid lane, misses out on a bit of farm, whereas Pegon's been allowed to free farm the neutrals. Just the slight threat, it's a pump fake from the Oni Warriors on the left. Are we going to go for your tier 2? If we do, you better be here to defend, and the Jade Dragons are, but they lose out small pieces on the map anyway.
It'll be a mid-heartbeat camp. Oracles at least going over to the Warriors. And now Pyromancer started once more. The Jade Dragons ready to respond. 4 members on the left, on the right side of the map, but everybody from the Oni Warriors are here. Even Pegon, or even I should say Netrioid, who's rotated through. Pyromancer secured by the Oni Warriors. No real fight back for the Jade Dragons. And this has been something I've noticed with the Warriors more than probably any other team, Myth, is when they want to do even something like a Pyromancer, they send Netrioid to that side of the map.
And it's committal. The objective calls are committal from the Oni Warriors. Let's rotate, let's play, let's make it happen, and let's make it happen now as a team.
And Vote doesn't have the beads, doesn't have an ultimate. He's got some backup from the team. Argus, it's not enough though. Panitom and SOT, who jumps down off the horse, stuns out Mike. But Nika's causing a lot of damage in the middle of everybody, pumping out that AoE shot. And now the Jade Dragons might try and find an opportunity to fight back in. LASBRA's full HP, and Mike is topping off the rest of the team, but the Oni Fury close. But it goes to the Oni Warriors. They back themselves away. They've left Jake, who might go down if not for the ultimate. Triple dash out of Nika and an ult from LASBRA to start funneling their way through. Panitom farming up the buff while Netrioid goes down. Sot may be the next one to fall as Dardez picks up the double, make it a triple for the mid laner of the Jade Dragons. Jake low, LASBRA will snag away the 4th kill. It's an objective for the Warriors, but 4 kills for the Dragons.
Man, the Warriors just too stacked up on that Gold Fury, stick around a little bit too long. I like the idea. Nika no longer has ultimate. Surely they can't just kill us after the Gold Fury. They can, especially if everybody's stacked up in the mire, and they did. That blink forward, that triple dash from Nika, the Cthulhu, just bought so much time, forced so many resources defensively that the Jade Dragons are able to catch back up. And now, a fight that erupts around the gold might lead to something more significant. Fire Giant, it's already down to half.
Panitom's got Blink and Runic Bomb. Could get in for the fight. Instead, he's trying to box up against Nika. But SOT is here to try and steal it away. The Dragons do get fire, and they'll find the pick onto SOT as well. And in one fell swoop, Mifflin, the Jade Dragons have not only found a massive fight on the left side of the map, they rotate over and they take fire for all 5.
But the game was just about dead even up until this point, so Fire Giant sure, and on all 5, significant. But what is the Fire Giant going to do for you? How much gold can you acquire in this time during this power play? You need to reset first, so that's going to eat up the first 20 to 30 seconds of this Fire Giant buff. Regroup immediately afterward, and 4 towers to work through. If the Jade Dragons can grab every one of those structures, be a massive swing for them. Siege has been where the Jade Dragons have struggled in the past, namely when they've got the Hell on their side. They don't have that standard initiator, no standard hard CC to start up your fight. If the Oni Warriors so choose, could try and just bolster defense around a tier 2, stick around and force the Jade Dragons to earn it.
Pegon aces the slice, transforms into the Nemesis again. This has been the
He loves it.
consistent transformation target for Pegon. Whether it's he loves it or he loves the safety that it can bring, it's got him out of danger a couple of times. Jake's gonna need some help, has ultimate to bail out himself. Panitom standing by, just as at least the receiver the benefit of that ult and the healing. Tier 1 tower down as the Jade Dragons continue their march forward.
And I think the Jade Dragons need to play fast here. Nika in first, descend into madness.
Netrioid knocked up, and a quick dash to get away as Nika plays zone duty so that his team can take down the tier 2 tower in mid. Now, only a couple of towers left standing for the Oni Warriors. It's the side lanes tier 2s that are still up. The Jade Dragons, still though, Miff, even with this turnaround that they've had, the couple of the big kills that they got over on the left side, the Fire Giant, still not a massive lead that has come the way of the Dragons just yet with this tier 2. But maybe going back to a bit of what you said, early Fire Giant doesn't necessarily net you anything major in the early game.
No, but so far I'd argue a pretty decent lead, at least in map state. Pyromancer pulled and taken by the Jade Dragons. The Oni Warriors show up just a bit too late to put up a defense there. I'm surprised the Jade Dragons even let off the push, J-Mac. I had called for them to play fast. You had just taken Undying Love and Changeling, both still off the map. Just now, Jake, getting access to that ultimate. Had the Jade Dragons been able to knock down that tier 2 without dedicating all of Nika's resources, I think there was potential for a Phoenix Siege there. Instead, a slower play, a little bit more methodical. Grab the tier 2, back up, get yourself a Runic Bomb off that Pyromancer, plenty of time to play around the Primal Fury, which will help you around the next Fire Giant. Gonna do more and take less damage from it.
Pegon. Another transformation. Not a Nemesis this time. So he's at least got something else on the Wheel of Gods to select for his transforms, but...
Has he used it in a team fight yet, J-Mac?
No, it has
think
been
so.
every time LASBRA has shown up, Pegon has ulted, backed away, and the Jade Dragons can benefit from it once more, this time taking a Primal Fury for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, these transformations from Pegon have just been lackluster, haven't they? Sure, you're getting it forced defensively, but I'm thinking at this point, and how Pegon's been playing, or how I've seen Morrigan played in the past, your beads might be worth less than your ultimate. Like, legitimately, having a Cthulhu on your team in a team fight is worth a little bit more, I think, than the CC immunity. So another massive loss for the Oni Warriors in team fight presence. It's up to the Jade Dragons and whether or not they can make use of that. It should be another minute or so until that Changeling is available once more. The Fire Giant certainly spawns before that, 5 seconds, till it creeps back into the battleground. The Jade Dragons just need to get into the pit, establish some defensive wards. The Oni Warriors have done a good job controlling actual vision up until this point. Grouped up as 5. They're not going to make it easy for the Dragons.
Warriors try to catch out Nika, just walking through his jungle, but Nika sniffs that one out and was able to dash back away to safety. Now the Jade Dragons try and reestablish some vision inside of the jungle. No wards in pocket at all for the Oni Warriors. They've already dropped all their vision on the ground. Jade Dragons still with a few for themselves to try and earn back that control. The Jade Dragons, they got the Fire Giant last time with little contest. SOT and Panitom stepped up. It might have to be the same, but there's 5 of the Oni Warriors this time in. Nika with a fast dash out, but SOT, he stepped on the gas pedal, has gone in. It's on to Dardez this time. He's been doing so much in these fights. He's already been forced away. Pegon in the Cthulhu, but look at the damage that LASBRA's caused the backline. He's been left alone. It's SOT to take him down.
Netrioid on the retreat. Doesn't have dash anymore. We'll need a bit of peel here. Pegon left in the backline as well. De-transform, and Aegis only buys him a second.
No, the stun. It's Netrioid too, and that's a beads pop by the ADC. Fast dash gets Netrioid out. The Oni Warriors live for a moment, finds the root on Nika. That gives him some distance, but the contagion procs plus the mire after. Nika finds a double kill in the fight.
Man, LASBRA sacrifices his life, but a 4-man slow, I think, very valuable for the Jade Dragons. Allows Nika the time to catch up with the rest of the Oni Warriors. Turn around the fight. Fire Giant pulled. SOT nearby. Steal potential's low. Maybe he's got to get in there and slow him down.
He's got Jake. Panitom on the way as well. That's a Runic Bomb still in pocket. If they can buy long enough for Panitom to come through the steal, but Mike's got one too. It might just come down to the Runic Bomb confirm. Ultimate from SOT to try and slow down the carries. The Dragons get the fire, but can they get the fight after? Panitom chomping away, but it's not enough damage. Nika is just too tanky up against this Bakasura, as it is the bomb from Mike that secures the fire, and the Jade Dragons make it out.
Man, Sot's ultimate there, so well placed, though, nearly able to solo outvote. And it was a solo. The rest of the Oni Warriors distracted by Nika. Hits him with a stun on top of 2 lava pits, but at the end of the day, he's still just a tank, hasn't got any damage items truly on this Guan Yu. So the Jade Dragons able to make their way out with the Fire Giant once more, and all 5 and in a pretty good state. The only concern for the Jade Dragons, I think, is Dardez having no relics for an entire minute. The Oni Warriors, an opportunity to defend, or even if Pegon could get a bit crazy on map, catch him on a rotation in, might be just enough. But as far as base defense goes, J-Mac, I do not love this composition from the Oni Warriors. Not in situations like that. It's not a standard mage, so you'll struggle with waves and keeping them out. You haven't got the best counter initiation either. Awesome Jake can keep someone alive, but he's not going to keep everyone alive. He's not going to throw out massive CC and prevent that initiation from the Jade Dragons. And the Jade Dragons will initiate, and it's simple. Nika bleaks in. He turns into a massive Eldritch Horror, and he knocks up 50 times and heals his entire team the entire time. And from there, the Jade Dragons, I mean, they made it look simple up until this point.
So at this point in the game for Pegon then, we've been seeing a lot of transformations by him, a couple of Cthulhus, a few Nemesis throughout this point. On these siege defenses, is that Cthulhu maybe still his most worthwhile transformation, or do you think maybe he pivots to something else for these defenses?
It's hard to say, and it depends entirely on how Nika plays. If Nika does go in a little bit too early, and he's a little bit too far ahead, a transformation into Nemesis, into an immediate burn on the Descent into Madness, I think could be a very good strategy, especially considering Netrioid is itemized exactly for that. It's not the standard crit build, it's Executioner, Kin Size, Odysseus Bow, wants a little bit of AoE, wants the ability to burn through these large HP targets. And a little bit of additional penetration from a Nemesis ultimate could go a long way. But if the Dragons are played stacked up, a transformation to Cthulhu just buys the exact same space that Nika will, which in of itself, very valuable.
So T committed to this fight. Nika to the back line, and now Pegon transforms. By the time he gets up, he's already at a quarter health, and he is gone. 1 Eldritch Horror off the map, and now maybe an awesome Jake as well. The Aphrodite's so low, one more swing would do it, but he's out. Panitom is not. It's a double kill for Dardez. 5 in a row for the Hera, Undying, the mid laner for the Dragons. And with 5 still standing tall, the Jade Dragons can push right in. Netrioid transformed, pushed back into the fountain. The Jade Dragons alive and healthy. Awesome Jake without an ultimate might not have enough time as the Dragons keep up their push. A triple stun from the Heart Bomb.
Slow.
Jade Dragons, unless a miracle comes through, unless enough damage from Netrioid is there, the Dragons will take game number 1.
Warriors just could not find their kills at all. The damage output just was not there. Seems when the early game has been stunted, the Jade Dragons could come out ahead. That was a clear strategy from the Jade Dragons. Slow down the Warriors, get to the team fight, play together as 5, utilize the sustain, and win the war of attrition. I love that. That is a strategic style that we didn't get to see from the previous iteration of the Jade Dragons either. Usually it was the inverse. We're talking about how they're always running it down early. Clearly they've diversified their play.
It kind of felt like a desperation play almost, though, by the Oni Warriors. I mean, they've had time to sit back at their Phoenix, maybe wait for initiation to come, but SOT and Pegon dive into the backline immediately. Pegon, by the time he transforms, he's already 25% health. Second later, he's already gone. Really felt like the Warriors maybe could have played that a little bit slower around Phoenix.
Maybe. They saw an opportunity to chase out 3, right? They didn't realize that there was Nika just hovering in the jungle and the disruption factor that Cthulhu would bring. Had they been able to find that individual pick, their defense would have been guaranteed. But I think you're right. The opportunity to play a little bit further back certainly was there.
The Jade Dragons able to take down the Oni Warriors in game number 1, but that's just game number 1. Can the Dragons repeat that performance in game 2? We'll find out right after this break.
ISO to the ND, Jare, yeah, we cruising through. In that 97 Cutlass, strolling through the air. Bass booming, it's a party inside the slab. It's whatever, baby, you could put it on a tab. Blessings in the wind, shall I see it, then I grab, ayy. Probably with the set, making bangers. Spare time, we be riding swingers. Pushing on them gears, Out here, and we swinging. Watch for the scanners, watch for the scammers. We be setting standards, Only going forward, ain't no going backwards. Anytime we in the booth, it's a fire hazard. Put some Dayton's on it, now they hating on it. Supreme clientele, they was waiting on it. Pontiac, Firebird flying on them. I got a need for speed, I'm a Florida on them. Gran Turismo, running game on them. This is custom kitted, whip the pain on them. Forza Motorsport, change lanes on them. Twisted metal gang, throw the flame on them. Hey, probably with the set, making bangers. Spare time, we be riding swingers. Pushing on them gears, Out here, and we swinging. Watch for the scanners, watch for the scammers. We be setting standards, Only going forward, ain't no going backwards. Anytime we in the booth, it's a fire hazard. Woke up feeling blessed, I ain't dealing with no stress today. Staying to myself, cause I won't let them get the best of me. We been pushing forward, we ain't focused on what's yesterday. They wanna know the formula, can let them know the recipe. Whoa. Metal to the floor, hear the engine roar. Pull the top down on the 2 doors. You can't push no buttons in this new car. Can't let them push our buttons, we came too far. Sometimes you gotta remind them what you do it for. We done came up, we was too poor. Got the butters on the feet, we from New York. They could feel it in our body, know we too pure. We was too mature, way before 24. I got kicks up in my closet that I never wore. We was down bad, now check the new score. They know it's ISO to the indie, we the new norm.
97 Cutlass, strolling through the air. Bass booming, it's a party inside the slab. It's whatever, baby, you could put it on a tab. Blessings in the wind, shall I see it, then I grab, ayy. Blessings in the wind, shall I see it, then I grab, ayy. Blessings in the wind, shall I see it, then I grab.
Ayy, probably with the set, making bangers. Spare time, we be riding swingers. Pushing on them gears, Out here, and we swinging. Watch for the scanners, watch for the scammers. We be setting standards, Only going forward, ain't no going backwards. Anytime we in the booth, it's a fire hazard.
Right away to a brighter day. Like a bag, cop a couple tickets, hopping on the plane. Hit a different country with each other, change your last name. Tell me, is you with it? Cause I'm with it. Why don't you feel the same? Down, 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 down. Knew you was different from the start, love. How you learn? They never taught love. You keep it peaceful and equal. I'm used to wars, love, hard love. I'm used to trauma, used to drama. Got a list of bad exes, plus I got a baby mama. Still you keep it solid. Put that on my mama and them. Way you build me up, you probably add an extra accommodation, destination, running to a flight. We ain't never coming back. I hope you didn't pack light. We should run away to a brighter day. Pack a bag, cop a couple tickets, hopping on the plane. Hit a different country with each other, change your last name. Tell me, is you with it? Cause I'm with it. Why don't you feel the same? Down, 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 down. It's the shuffle that I want you all on me, loving all on me, touching all on me, f***ing all on me. go be honest. 30,000 feet and we can leave the world behind us. Cause we keep it raw, I'ma hit it with no. I'ma hit you with my soul, I'ma hit you with these goals. You should probably leave your phone, ain't no service where we go. But you can't be iffy, baby, tell me where you at. You can choose the destination, put your finger on the map. We should run away to a brighter day. Pack a bag, cop a couple tickets, hopping on the plane. In a different country with each other, change your last name. Tell me is you with it, cause I'm with it. Why don't you feel the same? Down, 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 down.
I'm only talking flash, then deposits. I maneuver on some calls in the South Street. Run the clock and tell me nothing. This is everything I wanted. I'm only talking flash, then deposits. I maneuver on some calls in the South Street. Run the clock and tell me nothing. This is everything I wanted. She ain't know it, but I'm everything she wanted. She ain't know it, but I'm everything I wanted.
Look, I manifested where I'm at. The credit card just up the max, and everything I do, I tax. It's hard to buy my time. They see me shining, my paint dripping, I'm acting different. I keep it modest till I turn up, I've been champagne sipping. They clock watch while I big boss and a flossing proper. I'm quick to slide like a slip, not ducking cops and robbers. Been on the wave, you can't tame, they press and play to play me. And I'm out of body, my vibration high, I'm levitating. I feel amazing, I'm keeping space away from them toxins. I'm going places, I'm gassed up, ain't no limitation. Headed where that tree in that weather, got my melanin popping. Whip with the leather, the softest, what a fuck a humble brag. I'm bad boy with that cash, ready to spaz. I splash the dash, digital rat. They mad, niggas try and bite too hot to handle. I ghost ride it, I pilot phantom. My mind ain't yet hit its prime. They ask me when I'm quitting. Decline to answer, I'm unbothered, I'm kind-mannered. But fuck a body in the way, cause I've been moving at a rate where any day the fuse gon' burn out, then I blow up, then we go up, tell a hater, so what? It's in my veins, I'm cold-blooded and function, I'm flawless, I'm manufactured different. They carbon copy, they sloppy, I'm everlasting with it. I'm legendary, it's very scary, I'm seeing this through the finish.
I'm only talking flash, in deposits. I maneuver on some calls in the South Street. Run the clock and tell me nothing. This is everything I wanted. I'm only talking flash, in deposits. I maneuver on some calls in the South Street. Run the clock and tell me nothing. This is everything I wanted.
It's the one member of the Jade Dragons who is not here in studio who makes the biggest difference in this game. It's Dardez on the Hera going crazy and giving the Jade Dragons an assist and a win in game number 1 up against the Oni Warriors. And with that, Jade Dragon jersey stocks officially on the rise. You need to buy right now. Thanks to our sponsor over with Skulls, our apparel partner for Season 10 of the SMITE Pro League. The Jade Dragons jerseys and hoodies all the way on the far left of your screen there. Gore, now's the time to invest.
Also, I mean, you're thinking about it, alliteration. Like, I don't know, it's not actual alliteration because it's not writing, but the mouthfeel, Jade Dragon jersey. Like,
that sounds
hits
great.
A little bit better. You know, you don't get that with some of the other teams, though. You get some really good merchandise, but you don't get the same mouthfeel.
And you can actually get the real merchandise at shop.highresstudios.com.
That's the important part.
SPL.
And that's fantastic. I'm actually wearing a Skulls shirt right now. It's really, really comfortable.
It's a high-quality shirt.
My favorite thing is when I wear this sweater, I get to wear a Skulls shirt underneath, and it's super comfy.
They're form-fitting, and they look fantastic. Thanks to Skulls, our apparel sponsor, with us here again in Season 10 of the SMITE Pro League. But as I mentioned, Gore, it's the Jade Dragons on top in game number 1.
Yeah.
We talked about the team fighting potential of this Dragons team. Cthulhu plus Argus. We figured it would be great. And the Oni Warriors weren't really able to do the Oni Warriors thing, where they're
Yeah.
scrapping, finding picks, turning that into objectives. Felt like the Dragons had answers from the onset.
Healing paid off as well for the Dragons. I mean, there are a lot of times, Mifflin had even called it out, that the Warriors just couldn't finish off the kills they were going for. Whether they got them low, unfortunately that fight maybe not the best example, but you get, Pegon running away, Netrioid running away, a lot of them unable to return enough damage in a quick enough fashion that it was permanent. And that was really the problem, is that you could get the poke, but you lose the poke battle. Aphrodite versus Hell, Guan Yu versus Hell as well, maybe matching up some of that with the Cupid hearts. You really get to see what the benefit of launching 4 people around you or healing 4 people around you versus single target healing. And then it also helps when you're Cthulhu and very specifically Dardez 5-0 and 3 go absolutely insane. Both of them putting up pretty big damage numbers, right? 20,000 from one, 24.5 from the other. I think Nika and Dardez, I raised a question at the beginning of this, and it felt like we were starting to see, I don't even want to say a different team from what we've seen in the past, get to see these players for what they have been able to offer the entire time, but finally get to see them offer that, right? It's not just talking about the potential we've seen from them anymore. It's actually talking about what they are accomplishing. That one, we got to see it. And I just love to see them coalesce like that.
Yep.
Unfortunate for the Warriors that, I mean, you're running into them. It feels kind of like a brick wall. There were so many times that you just couldn't fight into what the Dragons had. Probably something they need to adjust in the picks and bans here. Maybe some of the healing, but maybe just some of the tanky nature that the Dragons had going into that, and maybe a little bit of Dardez, right? I mean, there's a little bit of everything I think that you have to try and figure out and target down.
Agreed. Now, the Oni Warriors, they're a resilient team, and they're a team that'll fight back, see if they'll take us to a game 3. But first, got to get through game number 2 in picks and bans. Fourth, said game number 2. Kicking off right now. Now, remember, chat, I'm playing against you and Jordan in fantasy this week. I don't remember what the chat/Jordan fantasy team is exactly, but I know that I've got Dardez on my team, so that's a great game 1 for me. But I also have Sot on my team, who went 1, 2, and 2.
Yeah.
I also have Stu on my team, who did not have the flashiest of KDAs in our first set of the day. So, chat, you and I are at odds with one another right now. You're preying on my downfall.
Yeah. Scary D earlier, Oath earlier as well on
Ooh, so
Jordan's
that's a split.
team.
Oath went off. Scary
did not.
Had a tough set.
Paul, Hardcore, Chuckles, who does have
That's good
some
for
maybe
Chuck. Got a 2 up.
applications today, but then I think the important one for chat in this one, Dave, is PBM.
They got Mike.
They got Mike.
Chat, you're rooting for Mike. Or if you beat me this week, I think we're doing chest drops or something every time chat wins.
Special drops the Sunday after.
All right, chat. You and I we're in a fight with one another. So you're hoping for Mike. I'm hoping for Dardez.
And you're rooting
SOT.
for Dave's downfall.
Well, that's this week or any other week, regardless of me playing against them in fantasy. We catch up with picks and bans though for game 2. Cern, Afro, Hell, Cirquette banned out, Nox, Hebo, Horus take a seat as well. Now, I wonder if Guan Yu is going to come at a premium now, because Guan Yu has been the sustained solo laner, and there's no Hell, there's no Aphrodite, no Horus to trade out with.
You know, your Vamana, your Marty still available, but the one that catches me off guard and surprises me the most,
Learn to fear me now.
honestly, is Hercules, right? I think Marty's been doing well. I wouldn't mind. I've preferred him in mid. I don't really care. He does a lot of damage, right? And I think for what we just saw, Vote could relax and then come in late game and just deal a ton of damage and let somebody else get the kills, and he'd be perfectly fine with it. That's more or less what just happened in the last game, is come into the late game as the Cupid and do a lot. The Hercules has been really high up there, though, right? I mean, he's been a pretty high pick ban percent, about 85, a little under. And it's surprising when we have teams, I think, like these, who both would look good with them. Maybe foregoing him in favor of some of these others.
It's time to fight.
I think when we look at like the Vamana who got banned last time, has been a pretty prominent figure, whether it's the mainstay that he's had in bans for pretty much a majority. I mean, you get 2 games from him from the Glads yesterday, but otherwise he's been banned in pretty much every single set, except for, I see 3 more games where he was finally let through and unleashed. So some wiggle room for him to find success.
Yeah.
I've just been a big Hercules enjoyer the last few days. And
Great. Duck, you look good on it in our first set of the day.
I want to see him locked in.
Now, Gord, do you have overall pick ban rates on your spreadsheet over there? Like a god's number of times picked and banned as a combo.
Yeah.
Just pick, ban, presence. I feel like we're living in the era of H gods right now. It feels like Horus, Hel, Hebo, Hercules.
Yeah.
There are a lot of them in the top like 5 or 10.
You go, so it Horus, Vamana, Marty, Kern, Hercules, Hel,
Yeah,
Afro,
there we go.
Serket, Hebo.
Got it. So those 4. I don't know why. I got a small brain and I just
A lot of
that's what really stood out to me. We'll not be seeing 3 of those in this game. Was Horus up top? Is Horus highest pick ban god right now?
100%.
Really?
He has been banned 20. This is his 24th ban. And when he hasn't been banned, been picked 10 times.
Did not realize it was 100% from Horus. I guess that makes sense.
Vamana's at 97.
I want to know what the one. You don't have to tell me, but that's probably one game where it wasn't.
Actually, I think I might have it very easily available because I think it was King's Leviathans this week. Oh no, he got banned there. Okay, he was just in the second phase.
I won't send you on a random wild hunt score.
Good, there's only been 2 weeks, man. I can find it pretty quickly.
I'm trying to bail you out. Athena locked in for the Jade Dragons. 1, there's already a Khepri, but 2, it's LASBRA, and so it was always going to be going to LASBRA, whether that Khepri was there or not. Now, Marty does open double hunter composition for the Jade Dragons, and it looks like the Oni Warriors agree. In the last 6 games, only Dardez has played the Marty. And so Vote will still be searching for his carry, and it will not be Cupid. It will not be Chernobog. And it will not be Cern. The Jade Dragons love this style, Gore. You get a Khepri, a bailout with the Scarab's Blessing, but also still good setup and damage from the Athena. Is able to help kind of bridge that gap between physical and magical damage.
Yeah.
And Athena can really help supply a bit of the magical.
Hounds Warriors last week, game 2. It is one and one that I've honestly really enjoyed watching. Specifically, LASBRA play a lot. Before that, Cherio play a lot. I think in the jungle, you get a lot of what you would like from other junglers. You sacrifice a little bit, right? Your 1v1 potential maybe isn't quite as high as you're going to see, and by that I mean it's like compared to like a Bakasura, Fenrir, Serket, things like that. Might as well not exist, right? You're not looking for that, but your setup balances that part out, right? You've got a great taunt, your shield wall, you can eat some damage, absorb some damage. Your rotations are very difficult to match because you can gank solo and then ult left, and then suddenly you're ganking 2 lanes within 30 seconds across the board, something no other jungler can bring. So I really do love Athena, especially in the right hands. LASBRA is one of those players that can put it in the right hands and make it work. And prior to this, I mean, it's been banned against the Dragons quite a few times because of that. Nice to finally see it get through and to see it get locked in.
Susano has seen plenty of play already today. A couple games in our first set.
Go forth, my
another
children, and
with
take
Tiamat.
over this land.
This feels standard, well-rounded from the Oni Warriors. The ability to get aggressive, find fights if you're Panitom. The ability to scale up, find burst damage later on if you're Pegon. And everything else just seems right. Now, an interesting note, Gore, is that normally when we've seen Vamana, it's been in the jungle. And by all accounts, this is looking like a solo lane Vamana.
Yeah.
So I wonder if the build path and the presence in team fights change. We have seen solo Vamana, but I feel, just judging by my memory, which could be good or bad, it feels like it's been less often than we've seen it out of the jungle. And Guan Yu, who has been so present in picks and bans, still is, but just later on in the draft. And so it's a standard double hunter style of composition from the Jade Dragons up against kind of normal smite from the Oni Warriors.
Yeah, and honestly, the quote unquote normal smite, I don't think that's a detriment to them by
not
any
a bad
means,
thing,
right? Yeah, like it's just them not.
It's a good draft.
Not messing around. I think the Vamana. I agree that maybe we see I think some changes in the build path. I don't think you have to change it totally if you don't want to. We also, I'm just going to play devil's advocate for the hell of it. SoloOrTroll has played Assassins a lot in that lane.
That is true.
I don't know that Susano is going to take the cake, especially in a matchup versus like Guan Yu. Probably feel pretty fine with the Vamana over there. I like the changes they've made, though, right? You've got pretty tanky bodies on the Warriors, right, to maybe match up some of the sustain on the other side, specifically from the Guan Yu. and you've got people who can deal damage enough to force Khepri to ult himself or to kill him without using it. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest challenges is dealing with the Khepri ult. It's almost always a big problem. The only downside is that, you see Terra, I see Tiamat, I see Vamana, I think tanky bodies. You got some really big guys that can get in the front, cause a lot of disruption. Marty eats them alive, and I expect a lot of damage to be coming from that. It is going towards mid, and I think that Dardez, last game, what was it, 5 of 0 and 8, 20,000 damage, beaten out only by Nika's damage. I think this is a game that if it goes long enough, which at that point is like 30, 35 minutes, really, right? You get just a few more team fights in towards the end than what we just got. I think that we're going to see him have some absolutely insane damage numbers, presiding that they don't just fall behind in the very beginning and maybe some snowball for the Warriors. I think if they get to a team fight phase like they did last time, they've got a really good comp to do it. I think I see a Khepri saying, we know where our damage dealer is going to be. I know who I need to res most of the time. The rest can stay alive or playing setup. Rom has then the flexibility to pick up some of the crit like we've been seeing, which really lets Marty lean into his own build, lean into his own damage, and bring a lot of success, I think, for the Dragons here. When we've seen him mid, which specifically, it's been mostly done by the Kings, right? We've seen BMT pick it up. This Marty has been devastating to the team on the other
Always
side.
does a lot of damage.
He does a lot of damage even when he's not over there. I think that the Dragons, they've got something good going for him here.
The Jade Dragons, are they on the verge of 2-0ing the undefeated Oni Warriors, or are we going to 3? We'll find out with J-Mac, Miff, and Doug.
That's right. We jump into game 2 between the Warriors and the Dragons. The Warriors one game away from maybe losing that undefeated start that they have kicked off, and no longer will we have an undefeated team in the Chaos Division if that is the case. And with the hot start that the Jade Dragons had in Game 1, looking to continue that in Game 2. As mentioned, it's J-Mac, Miff, and Doug here for that second game. And the Martichoras, Mifflin, we've been seeing a lot of it in the duo lane in week number 1. BMT brings it out at the start of the week in the mid lane, has a really strong performance, even maybe questioning why nobody was kind of playing this pick in the mid. Seems that this Marty is now starting to infect into another lane.
Marty supremacy, J-Mac. I'm all about it. This pick is just incredibly powerful. I've equated it to peak AMC, and that is something I will stand by. Has the wave pressure, has the defense shred, has so much damage output, ability-based hunter, scales well into the late game, but he's also safer. He also has a little bit more team-wide utility. Might be better than peak AMC. So keep your eyes on Dardez. Certainly where the Jade Dragons would look to play throughout the early, I imagine. But playing throughout the early shouldn't necessarily be the strategy here. Again, it seems to me that the Jade Dragons have got a very strong late-game team fight composition. LASBRA is going to take a little while to scale up. That's not to say that Athena can't get active early, but takes a little bit longer. It's not the same as your other standard mage jungles. It's not an immediate Doom Orb, a Spear of Desolation. You're online. It takes a little bit more for Athena, but she makes up for it with facilitation, initiation, and the ability to peel out for her allies with that Defender of Olympus. Same story for the Oni Warriors, though. Feels like they really can and should get involved a bit faster.
Panitom taunted in as he dives back to the Archers to try and fight up against the Dragons, but a quick turn and burn by LASBRA and Dardez to scare him away from continuing that push through. And there's some of that immediate CC that you were mentioning at that level 2 that LASBRA got access to.
Yeah, I was expecting to be dash at level 2, by the way. It's not often that you immediately go into taunt. I suppose better than it once was. Back in my day, taunt didn't do damage. Does now, so LASBRA able to go into that one a bit more quickly. Does put him in a precarious situation had the Oni Warriors been able to find a bit of pressure. Lacking safety until he ticks over to level 3, but doesn't seem like it's going to be an issue with Panitom already down to a quarter.
Panitom going to have to resort to clearing up some of the jungle camps if he wants to heal back up or go back to lane instead. So the Jade Dragons is able to fight back in this early stage. Now level 3, full access to the kit for LASBRA minus ultimate. Same with Dardez, if he decides to pick up that Stealth Grass at level 3. Which you've been seeing a lot of bumps around with it. In the dual lane, we've been seeing a lot of the grass put on these 2 side walls over by there so you can kind of sneak your support around for maybe a little bit of a gank. Haven't really seen too much of that mid. It's been a lot of drop the Stealth Grass either right in the middle of the lane or in the corridors heading to the jungle.
Yeah, dropping one in the middle of the lane just gives you access to that movement speed buff at a moment's notice. And around the corridors makes it a bit easier for your jungler to get involved. When you've got Marty and duo, you can play a little bit more selfishly with the grass, but I think out of mid, It's all about facilitating that jungler, creating clear junk or gank paths, clear rotation paths throughout as well. So keep your eyes on it. I'm sure Dardez has got some fun stuff cooking up. But otherwise, I think Stealth Grasp finds the majority of its value around objectives. Just the ability to maneuver around these corners, into the Gold Fury, into the Fire Giant, makes it so difficult for enemies to lock down where anybody's standing during these longer objective dances.
Nika under fire. SOT dash forward, a pull back in by Panitom. And near max range is enough to get the job done. LASBRA finds the double taunt to pull Panitom in. One more hit on the Susano, and that will do it. LASBRA turns it around and makes it a 1-for-1 trade.
Yeah, I wonder, if Panitom doesn't hit LASBRA, does he still die? Because the Archer, it was only one, I believe, but certainly got a couple shots off there. There was nothing left for LASBRA to throw at him besides those auto attacks. So maybe a slipstream away could have helped out a bit, but regardless, it's the Jade Dragons able to strike back. A counter punch from LASBRA gives him over access to level 5. Defender of Olympus now available, so I think it'll be a little while until we see Panitom get the jump on a gank again. And anytime LASBRA is farming up in the jungle and his teammates say, oh no, Susano's here, what do? LASBRA will be there, and he'll be there pretty quickly, giving over to defense to whoever he's jumping to.
A light bit of farm stolen there by the Jade Dragons, stealing the chest away from the Oni Warriors side of the map and making sure to keep the clear up as well. With that first blood, though, for Panitom, help expedite his build, get that Transcendence online very early, and get that one to start stacking up for the Susano. But if I wonder now, once these level 5s start ticking through, now Nika has access to CC immunity, PBM's going to have Scarab's Blessing available. How much more difficult does it now make for Panitom to try and find a rotation to one of these lanes?
Oh, it's miserable. Playing against Khepri as a jungler has got to be one of the most miserable experiences ever. Because you can do so much work. You can wait out Vote's ultimate, burn through the beads, outplay him on wave, and the PBM's going to show up and press 4. And you're going to have to do it all over again, right? So it's on Panitom now to find those opportunities. And even in mid, you got to get through the damage immunity and self-banish from Death from Above over in the solo lane, as you said. Cavalry Charge, one of the best disengage tools for a laner. It won't be easy for Panitom. I think if we're talking about ease of engagement, jungle fights for the most part, or wherever PBM isn't. Otherwise, it's going to be up to the actual laners themselves on the Oni Warriors to burn away some of those resources. If Netrioid and Jake can leverage the aggression of a Terra Cern lane, which is hyper-aggressive, by the way, maybe you burn through Scarab's Blessing, then Panitom can come through and have a bit more success.
So I'll have to keep eyes on Panitom, where he roams throughout the jungle through these team fights. Maybe where some priority gets picked for the Oni Warriors. So far with their first blood, able to hold their own against the Jade Dragons, though. Member immediately responded back by LASBRA. Has gone for not a Doom Orb that we typically expect, Mifflins. Instead, it's a Rod of Tahuti in the jungle first item.
That's a lot of power. I mean, he's going to hit much harder, especially on low HP targets, and Defender of Olympus definitely dunks low HP targets pretty consistently. So we'll slow down the build a bit, and we'll slow down LASBRA on map, sacrificing a bit of movement speed.
Mike pulled back. Scarab's Blessing keeps him alive for only a moment's notice. He dashes into a wall and then punished by the rest of the Oni Warriors. The 3-man surrounding of the Khepri is just too much for Mike to handle.
Yeah, those jungle fights, I think, will continue to favor the Oni Warriors. Surprised that LASBRA doesn't try and get involved with that Defender of Olympus. Perhaps trust the PBM and the Scarab's Blessing would have been enough, but not the case this time. The Oni Warriors strike first on the duo lane. It's almost around that time where defense starts to stack up, though. That's pre-Gauntlet of Thieves stacked up for PBM. So those avenues of play of just, all right, we'll just shut down the Khepri. You know, we might not be able to kill people around him, but we can kill him. Those options start to close up a little bit as PBM gets a few more items under his belt. But for now, and for the next couple of minutes, still valuable, still viable for the Oni Warriors.
Purple buff pulled into the lane. That way Netrioid and Jake don't miss out on any of their farm between wave and buff camp. Now Jake getting aggressive up against the Dragons. Does lock Vote inside the wall. Wild Hunt used as well. Vote still rather healthy, but now it's in the middle of 2, but it's a 3v2 because LASBRA's showing up. Panitom on the way to make it 3v3. LASBRA being very patient with that taunt, not using it at all during that fight.
No, maybe waiting on some of those relics to be used elsewhere, but Netrioid, a veteran, holds on to those beads, so no opportunity there. Perhaps a good decision from the Jade Dragons not to chase out that fight. I believe they had spotted Panitom on the ward just around that lane, so disengage, don't lose out too much. Panitom, though, given the space, able to rotate through mid and burn through one of those incredibly annoying resources I was talking about a little bit earlier. Death from above now off means next rotation to mid should go a bit better.
Now LASBRA wrapping back around. Don't know if he spotted Panitom, but Panitom surely spotted LASBRA.
He saw him.
Rotating through, so LASBRA will head back towards tower. Jake just off the mark with the wall. LASBRA spent a lot of time over on the left side the last couple of minutes. Nika about to go down in the 1v1. Doesn't have ultimate, has dash to get some gap away from SOT, but SOT will not change under the tier 1 tower. Just scares Nika back to base.
I don't think there was any way he was going to catch up to Nika there. And he misses out on, I believe, 2, maybe 3 minions to tower for that chase. So a little bit of farm loss for SOT. Sending someone back to base, though, should make up that difference. Purple buff invade attempted as LASBRA finds a small bit of taunt onto Awesome Jake, but fizzles from there. The Jade Dragons taking the path of least resistance. Just mitigate loss throughout the early. Seems to me they're trying to reprise that exact same pace from game 1. Difference being the Oni Warriors have extended their lead significantly when compared to the first match.
Pegon at the tower line of Dardez. Now with Mike and LASBRA on the way, Pegon will back out. Just continue his farm game, standing above Dardez. In XP, 10 versus 9. Same for SOT over Nika. 10-9 in the solo lane. So XP and a bit of gold even in favor of the Oni Warriors, about 2,000 at least in the gold department that the Oni Warriors have been able to farm up over the Dragons. And XP usually about a half level across almost every single role that the Warriors have up as well. Slower paced game, at least for the Jade Dragons, slower than what we saw last time. Is this maybe a pace that benefits the Jade Dragons? Obviously don't want to be down in gold and have that keep going, but is this slower nature better for the Dragons in the long run?
And the Dragons would love to keep the game as close to even as possible for another 20 minutes. The Oni Warriors would love to continue pushing their lead. The Jade Dragons have a composition that is very hard to deal with when they're allowed to group up, play as 5, and play off of each other. For the first 15 to 20 of SMITE, you don't really get that opportunity. So it's a bide your time, weather the storm style from the Jade Dragons. The Oni Warriors, I think probably shortly, will start grouping up around those Gold Furies. I wasn't expecting this quick, but is pulled. The Jade Dragons slowly moving in.
Boat rolls in, and that's enough for the Oni Warriors to back away. Jake dashes in. He's used both of his dashes to try and catch Mike, and it's left Netrioid by himself. A couple of snipes from Boat ought to do it. One snipe's all that it takes. He's still got 2 more just to fire out for good measure. On top of Awesome Jake, the Dragons have found a crucial pick to stop this Fury.
Man, Netrioid just got clotheslined there. Just tries to walk up, follow up with the rest of his team, and a couple autos over wall. And an initiation from LASBRA forces the Relic and the Life from the ADC of the Oni Warriors. Gonna be a while then until the Oni Warriors try for that Gold Fury, I think. I mean, Net just can't play without those beads. Not against Athena. You need access to that CC immunity, and Cern doesn't have it anywhere else. You're not going to get it from Wild Hunt, so it's all about that Relic. I think the Jade Dragons effectively slow down the game by another 2 minutes here, bought themselves a good deal of time.
Jade Dragons, now with their 1 pick, have evened up the kills, closed up a little bit of that gold lead that the Warriors have had, but most importantly, stopping that Gold Fury. You're calling for a short startup for the Warriors. They go in for an instant startup just on sentence for you, but thwarted by the Dragons, and LASBRA able to really get that fight started, gets a taunt, takes the beads away from Netrioid. Still 90 seconds or so until those are back up. And if I'm LASBRA, maybe the Dragons at this point, if I see Netrioid out in the jungle, could be a quick turning call to maybe get something started. I mean, when that Relic is down, Netrioid has no CC immunity whatsoever in the kit to stop them.
Yeah, and abduct from Mike into a Defender of Olympus, and that's probably just about all she wrote for Netrioid, at least for the next 70 seconds, while he's waiting on those beads to come back up. But the Jade Dragons aren't ones to need to force fights right now. I think perhaps happy that the Oni Warriors aren't asking any difficult questions, not until Netrioid gets that Relic back up. I don't really see an avenue for the Jade Dragons in towards the objective just yet. That massive team fight presence of Panitom and his ultimate really disruptive around these objectives. And that's hard to say, and it's not often you get to say that against a double ADC composition. Generally, it's jump on the objective, you've got the burn. But for now, Jade Dragons biding their time.
No crit yet on Vote. None on Netrioid so far. Prioritizing towards execution. We've been seeing that a little bit more as these weeks have progressed, and especially this weekend. We've been seeing a little bit less immediate crit from the Hunter builds. Been seeing a bit more of this Prot Shred started up and then going into crit. Maybe a little bit of that slowing down some of this objective play from teams, but I think you're right for the Jade Dragons. You've got 2 Hunters. You got good burn potential by having this Marty and Vote on the ROM, but haven't seen it just yet. Pull on to LASBRA. Waiting for an opportunity out. Will use his ultimate, and that gets him back to safety under the tower.
Yeah, wasn't willing to walk through that stun from Awesome Jake, so instead teleports his way out. Surprisingly tanky is LASBRA. That's just Guardian stat line. No defensive items just yet. But was able to just survive a lot of the burst there. Speaking of, Pegon dropped low in mid.
Beads or Aegis used by Pegon. Just his own nature to get out, but now sending Pegon back to base opens up the Pyromancer for the Jade Dragons, but that also opens the door for the Gold Fury on the other side. You can see LASBRA and Vote are there. The Warriors, SOT steals the Pyro away? What did he throw the umbrella out maybe to get the steal there? SOT stops the Dragons for a moment. Maybe now a punish on Awesome Jake. Pulled back in, but he is tanky, not tanky enough. His PBM credited to the kill this time through. Dardez will back away. The Dragons lose Pyro, but they get 1 in return.
I think the Dragons need to make an attempt for the Gold Fury here. While 1's off the map, Panitom pulled back in by the taunt, forced to use those beads. Should be sent back to base. SOT, no ultimate, no beads himself. So the Jade Dragons may have lost the Pyro, should get this gold.
Gotta be fast. Sot stolen away 1. Not gonna take anything this time around. So the Dragons, they lose their Pyro. Unfortunate for them. They find their pick, a good response. And then immediately into a Gold Fury afterwards. The Jade Dragons have now halted at least the momentum of the Oni Warriors, keeping this game as close as they can, and as you say, aiming maybe close to that 25-30 minute mark.
But I want to talk about how Assad just plays around that steal, J-Mac. I mean, it was picturesque, wasn't it? Gets rooted in the dash, holds onto the bead, says, look, I'm not going to use it just yet. I don't need to. Then pre-beads the abduct from PBM. And it's got to be, like, only in range for a second. I believe it's the second ability from Vamana that steals away that objective. Just frame perfect from SOT. That I think the only winning line for him there. And he found it. The Oni Warriors solo laner, always been an incredibly mechanical player. Puts it on display here. It's exactly what his team needs. And he makes that play from significantly behind. Not easy to do.
Now Mifflin, as a jungler, as one who spends most of his time building through the Mace Tree, a lot of Jotun's Wrath in your time. What are your thoughts on Brawler's Beats League at the moment? We see it picked up by Panitom. It's the answer to some of the sustain that the Dragons have, but I mean, what are your general thoughts kind of on Brawlers at the moment in its current state?
When I build Brawlers, it almost feels like a concession, like, I had to build Brawlers here. The stats are still pretty decent, but how the anti-heal is applied now, a little bit less effective, I think, than it once used to be. It's not just hit somebody, they're anti-healed, right? It's the field created, which is, I would argue, conditional. But as far as how it feels for your damage output or how it affects your burst potential, I don't think it is that bad. It's not ideal, but in a world where Jotun's is no longer core, you want something from the Mace Tree. Just get the Brawlers. It'll be all right.
All right. Well, Panitom, see if we can put that Brawlers to use. Transcendence into Brawlers for him. So lacking a little bit of that CDR, as mentioned, no Jotun's Wrath for him just yet. If he elects to build into it. Going down the Katana tree instead, so maybe a serrated edge on the mind of Panitom. This game has been significantly slowed down, Miff. I mean, in game number 1, it was right out of the gate swinging, constant back and forth bouts. This game, still a few little scrambles here and there, but haven't really seen a big fight break out just yet.
No, not just yet. Was that? No, that was Magi's. I thought maybe Jake uses beads there. as he tussles around the neutral camp. We'll see. We've seen this strategy plenty. Just an immediate burst off the back of CC. That's what Marty affords your team. So even Jake, with all this defense stacked up, can't really stand in that damage for too long. Loving the pace the Jade Dragons have been able to establish so far. And it seems to me, now they're trying to play spoiler. Nika is starting to rotate out a little bit more, has a pretty significant lead, so he's not sacrificing too much in farm. Even Dardez is starting to get active towards that left side of the map. The Jade Dragons are starting to approach that point where they can group up, be that death ball, play around the strength of their composition. And the Oni Warriors, I don't think, have done enough up until this point. That even with a 1,000 gold lead, it'll be the Jade Dragons, the proactive element.
Sun had the steal last time. Does not have the steal this time. Pulled back, in fact. Does have the dash to get away. Nika into the front line. Has the backup of LASBRA, but a Typhoon hits two. The crit slamming through LASBRA as well. The damage from Pegon will scare away the jungler of the Jade Dragons. They've got the Pyromancer. Picked up the Runic Bomb. Has PBM. But that's all that they've got in the gas tank for now.
What can the Oni Warriors do, though? LASBRA forced back to base. Nika as well. He'll be teleporting back in. The Dragons want to defend this tower, and will do so. The Oni Warriors, they wanted to get something on map. Losing out of the Pyro, but sending a couple back to base. Those TKOs, a little bit of time to play with, but not enough to knock down the structure. So it's the Jade Dragons who come out on the other side unscathed. A clean win for them, and actually a regroup first. Could be an immediate Primal Fury.
Nika just gets away from the wall by Jake. Primal picked up. The Warriors know this is happening. There's vision inside of the Fury pit. But Jake sitting at under half HP won't be enough to stop the Dragons. It takes a few members of the Warriors to rotate over to keep the Dragons at bay and stop them from going for that objective. The Jade Dragons biding their time. Those level 20s slowly approaching for a lot of members on the map. Still 17s, at least at the highest point, but once those power spikes come through, especially with LASBRA, look what he's picked up. Third item, Rod of Tahudians, a Spear of Desolation, and now a Polynomicon. First damage through the roof now for LASBRA. The Jade Dragons, they take their window of opportunity. Primal Fury started up. Sada's here, a pluck by PBM. And the Primal Fury is good, but now PBM will be the one caught out. Has Scarab's Blessing, but may just delay the inevitable inside the middle of 4. Finds the double root. The turn away after Sot. Able to take him down and tries to get another one with him. Typhoon. Not enough to take out Nika, but LASBRA left by himself. Nika distracting two. It's a double for Net. A Fury for the Dragons, but 3 for the Warriors.
The Jade Dragons have a little bit more fight back as Vote sinks some autos into SOT. The Jade Dragons just weren't willing to let Mike die. Let him die. Let him go. You can just walk out. You got the Fury. Trade 1 for it. It's a Pyro plus Fury for 1. Would have been valuable. But the attempted peel from LASBRA and Nika, not willing to let their support fall down for them, has cost the Jade Dragons significantly. One misplay around the disengage should lead to a Fire Giant. Nobody from the Jade Dragons nearby.
Fire Giant to all 5 of the Oni Warriors. Dardez and Vote nowhere near for the objective to even attempt to be sniped or stolen away. So Oni Warriors with their 3 kills after a Fury goes to the Dragons. They pick up a Fire Giant, they put on all 5, and now maybe can reshift the momentum of the game to their favor.
Could do. Do you start your siege immediately? I think so. You've got some significant leads. 3 levels out of the jungle for Panitom. So that AoE damage from the Typhoon going to be even more important around these tier 2s, around the Phoenixes. Susano, a little bit different from your standard assassins. I think Susano and Hunbot's primary in this conversation, where most assassins start to fall off in siege situations in a true 5-on-5 when you're not able to maneuver the jungle and catch people unaware. Not the case if you have a massive AoE teamfight ultimate, so keep your eyes on Panitom. Could be the difference maker, as well as Jake. That Earthen Fury going to find a whole lot of value. Pegon as well. On a more standard mage, can apply that poke consistently. Whereas on the other side, the Jade Dragons have got the ability to keep the waves out, but it's not the same level of AoE DPS that a standard mage has.
Mike pulled back by Panitom. Bursted by Pegon. Gets the revive off just in time to go down once more. The Oni Warriors collapse in on the support of the Dragons. And now with 2 members of the Dragons not standing by, the Warriors can walk right into this Phoenix and take it no problem. Maybe even grab a pick alongside. It's a double for Sot as Dardez drops down. 2 gone from the Dragons. The Dragons haven't come back to base yet.
Nika's
Nika's
dead.
down. It's just Vote and LASBRA, and LASBRA's not even here to help defend until just now. Finds a taunt. A big taunt to get this one going. The crit coming through from Vote helps take down one. In the sky is Vote to snipe back, and the Oni Warriors forced out of the throne room.
Man, it's the unpredictability of the Oni Warriors. I think the Dragons are right. Most teams would not go for the siege there. Jake, a bit of trouble. Vote, no access to the ultimate. Shouldn't be able to chase out too much. It's Netrioid in no man's land.
Rooted, beads, dash in now by Laz, and a taunt back.
That's
Netrioid's got some good crits to fight
that's
back,
it?
but Vote isn't there to follow up. It's a
That was
double
supposed to be
stun.
in.
Vote takes down Netrioid, but it takes him a lot longer than they had hoped to. Aegis now used, and Panitom will sweep in for the kill. An extra one for Sot, and now it's just Mike and Dardez left. Nika just respawning.
I mean, it's a direct inversion. The Oni Warriors were willing to let Netrioid die. They said, all right, look, he's out of position. He's got nothing left. But Netrioid buys so much time. The Jade Dragons chase so far. Able to turn it around. The Oni Warriors grab the Pyro, but will they escape?
Death from above by Dardez. Sot has separated himself, but he's got a pretty long-range dash. Mike trying to chase this one out to get anything for him and his team. Now with Pegon coming back through, not enough damage onto Sot. Bluestone won't tick through either. He just lives through with under 100 HP. Not enough in the tank for Dardez to finish that kill.
It looked like Dardez just trusted the ability to do it. One auto attack is all it would have taken, but disengages. Doesn't want to go the same way the rest of the Dragons did. Sticking around too long for a kill and losing his own life. Right side bird burned away. The Oni Warriors have exposed the Titan of the Jade Dragons and poked it down. Going to be a while till it can resustain. Jade Dragons, though, if you got to lose one, Phoenix, you'd like it to be that one. Easy to defend the Fire Giant while simultaneously contending with those enhanced minion waves. Looping around the Fury from the Dragons. Gets them nothing. Maybe cost them Dardez.
Dardez pulled back. Typhoon up, no ult.
Wow.
And Dardez gone. Rampage now for SOT with his 5 in a row. 5-0-3 on the Vamana. Tier 2 tower under threat. Not much the Dragons can do to stop this one. But Fire Giant already had worn off from the Oni Warriors, but 2 missing in action, at least for the Jade Dragons. Fire Giant under the eye of the Oni Warriors as they walk over to the right side.
It's just the speed of play, J-Mac. The Oni Warriors are constantly doing something. Grouping up on an objective, running down a tower, chasing someone out through the jungle. The Jade Dragons aren't given time to recollect their thoughts, regroup, and say, all right, where do we defend? How do we play? Where are we going? These questions are rapid fire, and the Oni Warriors, if you even miss one answer, they're going to find something big on map. This time it's Dardez and the Fire Giant on all 5.
It's like if you're asking the question as the Jade Dragons, you've already missed the answer. You've already missed your chance to try and get an answer because the Oni Warriors have already moved on to their next step of the plan. So for the Oni Warriors now, Myth, they already got the right side Phoenix. There's only one Tier 2 tower left standing. Is this now maybe the call for the Warriors group up, push up this left lane and try and maybe set up for the end, or at the very least set up for next fire?
I think it's time to start pushing into these towers. Get ready on the left. It's simple. Only tower still standing, so knock that one down. I don't imagine the Jade Dragons put up much of a fight on that Tier 2. It's all about getting that right side Phoenix up, and already Nika's done a good job pushing out those waves. So the Jade Dragons have some time to play with here. The Oni Warriors, though, even more time and more resources with Fire Giant for the next 2 minutes. One pick could just cost you the Titan. We've seen what Vamana can do in particular. It's almost infinite how long he can tank that Titan in the ultimate. So keep your eyes on him. SOT just going to be so disruptive in that back line. It's on the Jade Dragons. Utilize that double hunter to deal with them. But so far, 5-0-3, I don't think anyone's found the answer to SOT just yet.
Undying on the soul lane Vamana. Pegon pelting damage up against the Jade Dragons. Return fire, at least by Dardez. With that acid rain, such a long range. They can get access with that and decent bit of burst to go along with it. Panitom has separated himself from the rest of the Warriors in hopes to maybe try and split push up against LASBRA or split push the Dragons, but in the 4-1 split, the Dragons hold firm under their Phoenixes.
They do. And it's not a great 1v1 for Panitom, even into LASBRA, if that's the case. Those block stacks, so detrimental to the auto attack combo. Shouldn't be able to go in, so he switches targets. He wants Mike.
And, well, Mike's probably going to have to go back to base. LASBRA goes in with Vote. Sot Taunted back in, but gets up into the Colossal Fury. Not enough damage.
He's fine.
Are the snipes there? No, they are not. And even so, not enough damage from Vote to drop SOT. The Oni Warriors, they don't get anything on their siege. In fact, right side Phoenix has respawned. But for the Dragons, maybe a bit of breathing room now against the Warriors.
No, that's a great defense by the Jade Dragons. I mean, what was the game state beforehand? They had lost their right side bird. The Titan was already injured. And what happens after the Fire Giant play? Right side bird back up. Titan's full HP. So the Jade Dragons find themselves on the other side even better off. This time around, I don't think the Jade Dragons will give up that Fire Giant, not for free, so long as they can all stay alive. Nobody can get picked beforehand. If anyone does, we're looking at another attempted siege by the Oni Warriors. Smart by Panitom to switch targets to PBM. Threaten that Scarab's Blessing defensively. You're not really suited to deal with the Athena with all those block stacks from her passive. So I like that. But I think enough data now for the Oni Warriors in their next siege attempt. They want Panitom with the core of the team. That Typhoon creates so much space, such a massive threat. It'll force the Jade Dragons to back up a bit. Could expose these birds to a little bit more damage. And getting into the right one, probably ideal. That's about as healthy as it's going to be.
Panitom, no beads for 90. LASBRA, similar position. And Shell for Jake a few seconds off. The Warriors will go ahead and work on the Primal Fury as the Jade Dragons group up around Fire. Not there to have anything be done towards. Still another 15 seconds before Fire respawns, and then another minute before it becomes enhanced. If you're the Oni Warriors in this position, Miff, you got some good team fights. You've already been able to break the base once. Do you wait out this 1 minute before this Fire Giant turns enhanced, or you try and get the fight and the objective a little bit earlier?
It's a question of opportunity. If you find a pick, take the fire, run it down. If you don't, waiting a minute to actually start the fight, I don't think poor at all. I don't even think it's not an opportunity at all. It's not a decision they're making. The Jade Dragons have shown enough presence. The Oni Warriors really can't just pull the Fire Giant. They'd love to find that pick first. Keep your eyes on LASBRA. It's telling where he's standing. He wants to start this one off with a Defender of Olympus, not even necessarily going for a flank. Just wants to play spoiler to the Oni Warriors initiation.
Pegon, again, getting some nice damage up against the Dragons, but with Nika on the Guan Yu, able to heal his team back up. Get a little bit of those cooldowns reset back for the team. Not that the Dragons have had to use any of them just yet. The Oni Warriors playing patiently around the Fire Giant, waiting for that one moment, that one player to be caught out of position.
Is it Mike?
And it might just be Mike. Nika there for the bailout, finds the stun on 2, gets beats from Pegon, and a bubble from Awesome Jake. The Oni Warriors now losing out on a big relic for Pegon.
Yeah, now LASBRA's got a clear target. Connect, confound on a Pegon, and profit. The plan is simple. The Jade Dragons playing defensively still. It's a significant gold lead for the Oni Warriors. Nobody truly 6-slotted on the Jade Dragons. Still waiting to upgrade those relics, whereas the Oni Warriors are very nearly full build on each of their key players. Means that the Jade Dragons will play counterpunch. They can't be the initiators even with beads off of Pegon, which is such a bad feeling, knowing that there's a massive opportunity to turn things around, but you're just not powerful enough as a team to make use of it. And the Oni Warriors, patience. I mean, this is veteranship from a team that has been associated with run it down, W key only, showing that decisive nature, that decision-making process of, okay, look, we don't want to fumble here, don't want to have our first loss in the regular season, don't want to mar our records. Let's go ahead, take it slow, wait for Pegon to get some more resources, head back to base, get some of these power spikes, maybe control a little bit more vision, then look towards the Fire Giant. But until the Oni Warriors pull that trigger, J-Mac, until someone does pull the Fire Giant, this is what the screen's going to look like. You need to generate threat to make something happen.
Warriors are doing just that. A lot of damage through. Fire Giant nearly taken down. The Oni Warriors get the fire, and a huge Typhoon by Panitom to start the fight out. He's going to be out of this one. LASBRA will go in for some extra safety towards his teammate. Dardez trying to fire some shots back through, getting a lot, but SOT is untouched in the back line and hasn't taken a bit of damage up against the Dragons. He will force everybody back. A slow one to Mike will allow SOT to keep up the chase. And the Oni Warriors, Panitom specifically, starts that fight off massive as SOT just runs it down against the Dragons.
Yeah, that hastened, getting a whole lot of value there. Just WM1 for SOT. has put himself in a pretty poor position, though. Should fall down eventually. Unless he takes Dardez with him? No way.
Oh, close. But it does open up a Phoenix on the left and, or I should say in the middle and right of the map. So Pegon able to take down one Phoenix. The rest of the team of the Warriors grabs another. 20 seconds until Vote is back. LASBRA rooted.
Yikes!
Twice and a damage from Pegon. The follow-up from the Oni Warriors. But a few low health bars. Jake and Panitom have got to be careful because Nika and Dardez are still alive. Stunned by Nika, but no follow-up from Dardez yet. The Titan down to half HP. Nika down to none. Pegon gets one. Dardez straight out. But the Dragons lose out, and it's the Oni Warriors taking it to game 3.
It's just the speed of these engagements, isn't it? Just, okay, we have an opportunity. Jump on LASBRA. Make it happen fast. Every single time the Oni Warriors get these game-breaking picks, it's off the back of already winning a fight and teams assuming, all right, we've got some time to regroup. We've got some time to rethink and set up our defense. Simply not the case. Not against the Oni Warriors. These guys and the speed of play, the decision-making, it's there. I have to imagine the shot calling is simple. Someone says do something, and then they all just do it.
I mean, that's the level of trust that they were talking about with their comms, you know, coming into the first week or so of play. They said, man, what's it like with this team? None of y'all have gotten a chance to play with each other. A few of you maybe in a ranked scenario, but outside of that, no time with each other. I say, we just kind of trust each other to do it. So someone says, I'm going to go in, we're just going to follow because we've got the mechanical skill and we've got the trust that our teammates are going to be able to hit their buttons and hit them a little bit better than the enemies.
And it's not just mechanical skill and trust, it's individual play at that. I mean, it's not someone telling SOT, yo, dive in, kill 3 people in the base, force Dardez back as well. It's the knowledge of, I can create this space, I can go in now, I trust myself to press my buttons well, playing through pressure on every portion of the map. Every single one of them on the Oni Warriors just understand that they have the potential to win out in their direct matchup, and they do so frequently. It is a consistent win condition you could pull on. A lot of these other teams will say, yeah, you know, if one player has a really good day, we'll play through them, and that's how it goes. The Oni Warriors are all playing like that all the time.
It really kind of simplifies these objectives and these team fights when Panitom's able to land 2 3-man Typhoons inside the Fire Giant pit to kind of get a fight started up there. Oni Warriors able to climb through game number 2, take down the Jade Dragons, and tie up the set. But who's going to come out on top? Will we still have an undefeated team, or the Jade Dragons going to be able to notch a win in their column in the first loss for the Warriors? We'll find out in game 3 right after this.
Got the flame. Came with the gift, the gab, and blessed with lots of game. Be mad at me, they know I'm not to blame. You in her DM, I'm in her mouth, we not the same. Flipping the funk, the heat, the fire, got the flame. Came with the gift, the gab, and blessed with lots of game. Be mad at me, they know I'm not to blame. But I'm too geeky to be preaching, I just show out. Winning and it's looking like a blowout. Pile up my paper, let it grow out. If it ain't about no money, I don't go out. I'm too geeky to be preachy, I just show out. Winning and it's looking like a blowout. Pile up my paper, let it grow out. If it ain't about no money, I don't go out. I got way too many missed calls. Think your girlfriend going through her withdrawals. I do what I wanna, God gave me big. And some that wanna cover them with lip gloss. Seen them looking at me crazy, but I ain't go. Hood, ain't too many places I can't go. Tryna fit all of your friends in that Durango. I'm the only young with a Kango. Chain glow, hang low, scaring Anglos. Chapala trading dollars for the pesos. Mama smell the marijuana on my pesos. About to kill them in my where they make those. Case closed, change clothes and time zones. She shook her neck and mind blown. Got the funky that make them do the stank face. I ain't chasing, I'm at Chase Bank. Hey, you in her DM, I'm in her mouth, we not the same. Flipping the funk, the heat, the fire, got the flame. Came with the gift, the gab, and blessed with lots of game. Be mad at me, they know I'm not to blame. You in her DM, I'm in her mouth, we not the same. Flipping the funk, the heat, the fire, got the flame. Came with the gift, the gab, and blessed with lots of game. Be mad at me, they know I'm not to blame. But I'm too geeky to be preaching, I just show out. Winning and it's looking like a blowout. Pile up my paper, let it grow out. If it ain't about no money, I don't go out. I'm too geeky to be preachy, I just show out. Winning and it's looking like a blowout. Pile up my paper, let it grow out. If it ain't about no money, I don't go out. For the energy, I ain't worried, give a fuck about the enemy. Beat it, got them thinking it was 10 of me. That's why tonight I'm on the weed, not the Hennessy. Lying, but I tell you how it really be. Dropping game, I could sprinkle for infinity. I'm the player of the year if I do say, cause I treat a Saturday like a Tuesday. Came through with the sauce for the soul food. Eat good, smoke great, that's a whole move. Whole time, half time for the smoke break. In the mission, from the mission for the long cake. Laced up, rope chain, got my tongue tied. Top down, out, let them sun dry. I'm that and I said it before I had proof. Can't believe it till they see it, that's a sad truth. Hey, I be out of town all the time, out of blood rush. You be out of line, out of bounds, out of comeback. I be out of town all the time, what it does that. You be telling lies in your rhymes, where your funds at. Mailbox money in my real name. 30 years old and they still lame. Tryna kick it in the H like a field goal. Touchdown with finesse, that's a heel toe. Look, what you thought? Think better. Sundress, no drawers, got the seat wetter. Got my suede jumpsuit for the wind chill. Hot girl, but she blowing like a windmill. Truly, I ain't got a flex for the routine. Too clean with a plate full of poutine. Worrying about me can't help you. Way better when it's heard and it's felt too. Get my weed from the west, gold from the south. Show 'em how to make them triple O's from the couch. Counting on luck ain't a life plan. I'ma have the last laugh for a lifespan. Hey, I be out of town all the time, out of blood rush. You be out of line, out of bounds, out of comeback. I be out of town all the time, what it does that. You be telling lies in your rhymes, where your funds at.
Some of the expected Oni Warriors flair appears here in game number 2, and they will win it and send us to a game 3 up against the Jade Dragons. Remember this matchup, a battle for first place in the Chaos Division. Oni Warriors currently sit at 3-0, Jade Dragons at 2-1. Jade Dragons would hold the tiebreaker at 3-1 against the Oni Warriors if they're able to win this game number 3. And if you're looking towards Masters, which is only a few weeks away, top team in the division automatically goes. Bottom 3 have to fight through qualification. This one very important. First of 2, we'll see these two teams go up against one another. One more game to decide it. And Gore, what happens here in game 2? It feels like Oni Warriors able to remedy some of the woes from game number 1. They're able to play their game a bit more effectively. SOT is chasing down the Jade Dragons, all of them in their base. That's more indicative of the Oni Warriors we've come to know.
Yeah, it feels like if I just say they played good, I mean, it kind of covers what happened, but it's not enough, right?
Sure.
We got to dive a little more into it, and it is exactly what you say, right? The Vamana, I think going towards solo gets to do a lot more for the team than what we had expected. I really do, I think, like what they had to offer on the Dragons that game, but you saw a lot of this. And this is something that if you have a Khepri on the other side, you know you're winning. If you are forcing not only a Scarab's Blessing onto Khepri every single time, you lose pretty much 90% of the reason you might be picking a Khepri, honestly. I mean, getting that extra man is just such a huge deal. He's got some decent setup in the pullback, but once your ult is gone, you start to fall apart, and you're going to notice a very familiar theme throughout all of these. You'll notice that it's Mike dying, and it's not a dig at Mike, it's a dig at Khepri. Once Khepri's dead and once that Scarab's Blessing is gone, it really just does not mean anything to the Warriors, and they just get to push forward. And so it was really easy target selection for him. Also some really weird, like, engagements overall from the Dragons. I mean, look at, like, almost every single one of these highlights, every fight. Yes, the Warriors are the ones bringing the fight to the Dragons, but it's felt very lopsided is the term I want to use, where you just, like, you know, you have, like, one guy who's just standing there in a weird spot, and there's not a single other soul from the team nearby, and so you get the kill, and then the next guy kind of stepped up, and so a lot of the times that they found themselves with 2-3 kills, it was just weird choices from the Dragons. You see 4 deaths on Mike. Those opened up everything else that made the game so much easier for him, not necessarily because of Mike, but because the Warriors just had good target prioritization. They killed the guy who could res anybody else on the team before he could res anybody else, and the 2 ways to deal with Khepri are what we just saw, or get an execute and just go through the ult. And they chose the former, and it worked out wonderfully for them. They get to play aggressively. They get to do exactly what they want to do. Sot's, I almost said a curse, insane. I almost got a little too comfortable there. He's just really good at playing this, and the Vamana was really nice. And if you're banning the, you know, Hebo knocks Horus 2 games in a row, I think the appropriate adjustment from the Warriors was swapping out the Martichoras for the Aphrodite, and Bart swapping out the Vamana for the Hell. And if they can pick up a Vamana again, even though it wasn't even first pick, they could probably swing something. If they let the Dragons get it, it seems like if they were willing to let it go through their bans, they either bet the Dragons don't have a Vamana to work with, or they think they can deal with it. So I'm really interested to see how they handle this next one.
And one more time, we'll see if the teams change up play style, options, all of that in picks and bans for game number 3. Worth apologizing to chat. I remember in the fantasy conversation, I had SOT and Dardez. Sot 7-1 in that game. Dardez, even on a losing side, goes 2-2 with a few assists. Mike goes 1-4. And so it's a really good boost of points for me in the head-to-head.
So I beat chat last week. And I felt, Chad, I'm sorry, this is live on air, I'm going to admit this, no remorse because my fantasy team did well. And the serotonin of my team doing well outweighed any negative feelings of chat not getting rewards.
Yeah.
And I'm doing another, like, quick mental evaluation. It's still the case. Now that I've said it out loud, though, it was a lot closer than I thought it was. I almost started feeling bad there.
No remorse.
But almost isn't actually, so.
Well, if what just happened happens again, and it's Sot on Vamana, could be another good look for me and my fantasy team. 7-1 on Vamana for Sot in game 2. Can the Jade Dragons find that answer? Cern was also vitally important. The Bramble Blast, just that half second of root sometimes, so important and so effective at setting up kills. And now you've got that in AoE form with Terra. Love the duo lane for the Jade Dragons that's been built. And Gore, a popular answer has been this Izanami. What were you saying? The KDA for
It was like
Iza?
a 22.
Yeah, the KDA was really good for Izanami.
22.5 across 4 games.
Well, you've got great late game burn potential now between a Vamana, an Izanami, and a Merlin.
Yeah, I think you're honestly, we saw him not even have to get to the late game last time around before they started swinging hard. I do genuinely think that this is just a good pick overall. Honestly, now I want to find out. I want to say most, if not all, of the games have been picked up by Netrioid.
Yeah.
And that would, again, I just have to do a quick glance towards last week. And they have been really, really fun to watch as he gets a lot of good pressure early on. Some of the things fall apart. Actually, I see the 2 wins immediately. 2 of those wins are on the Warriors. 1 as well for the Ravens. And so definitely some interesting picks. I just like the Izanami. I like the way Netrioid plays it. And I think in this draft it should do pretty well. I do like the shift up from the Dragons, though, away from the Khepri. onto something like the Terra, get yourself some more prots, get the Susano good for peel, but also can dive, create his own opportunities in the right hands. I feel like LASBRA, you know, the downside of picking an Athena is that while you can deal decent damage yourself, you're still finding the most opportunities for someone else. In game 1, that worked. Dardez goes absolutely insane. Game 2, maybe would have liked a little more, I think, from all aspects of what the Dragons were bringing. I think Susano is going to maybe take a step in a better direction for that.
LASBRA has not had many bad games so far this year in Season 10. We've mentioned so often the 6-kill threshold that it feels like LASBRA is always meeting. However, Oni Warriors have had his number a bit, have really held him in check. Game 1 was a win for Laz, but 3, 2, and 5, while a good KDA, nothing, not necessarily a carry performance, right? Nothing crazy. Game 2 on the Athena, 1, 3, and 4. Not the usual impact.
Arise, my child.
Not an easy matchup going into Panitom. Now a Tiamat for the Jade Dragons and Dardez. Dardez loves these styles of mages. Early indicators, though, I'm enjoying what the Jade Dragons have put together. One of the most sought-after carries, a good consistent mid laner for Dardez. Carry opportunities on the Susano for LASBRA out of the jungle.
I like putting a lot of stock in like the numbers we get, right, when I look at pick ban %, then follow it up with like win % and stuff like that. And I'm still a little surprised that the Hercules isn't as prominent, at least this set, as we've seen in others, right? I feel like he's been a very big ban. Again, he's up on high on the list, been falling a little bit more because of these games, but prior to this, coming into it around 85%, pick ban, really, really, really solid pick. We saw it earlier today and what it can do. I'm kind of surprised. I think that what we see out of SMITE, the Vamana worked out really well. This could easily still flex into the jungle, so they've got a lot of opportunity here in the bottom two. But the Dragons, unless they're going to do something absolutely insane, they're holding out for Nika's pick to make sure that it is a Vamana matchup or something else, right? To make sure that this is an assassin that gets locked into the bottom two as opposed to another warrior. To maybe give him something to leverage on. I think Nika is a huge portion of the teams that he is on. And his success tends to translate maybe to their success. And maybe it's not like a great like 1v1 matchup, but Hercules just does so much throughout the game. And from what we've been seeing, he wins pretty well as well.
Does this tell us anything, though?
I guess Sot likes to play Thor, doesn't he?
And so does Panitom. And I think Sot and Panitom would have liked both. I think maybe after what Sot just did, you need to give the Vamana back. Panitom's so good at the Thor. The good news is that you can make an argument for either, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like there's a...
I think you get more from having Vamana in solo than you get from having Thor in solo, if that makes sense. Like, I think
Villadon is used earlier, right?
Yeah, because you get a little more action from the Thor, I think, overall. Maybe late game, and admittedly, depending on how they play, which is very scrappy, it doesn't necessarily matter. And you do have some pretty high kill potential. I mean, you get a good wall tier, early on before he has his ult. He can't jump over it because he doesn't have ult. Later on, he has to ult to get over it. Same thing for Susano. You could lock him in. So if that's for ganks or if it's in lane, Thor has a really good matchup in like a 2v2 over there, and solo can definitely cause a lot of trouble. Vamana, I look for like knockups. Are there people that you need to chase down a little easier? If the stun on Thor, I mean, they both have really, really good close gap potential. So I think they both work. Sot just went really well, so I'm probably leaning towards recency bias and giving him back the Vamana.
I'm also just a fan of Thor jungle. I like Thor solo too, but
Anvil of Dawns more often is just better.
Dunk, 1, wall, 3, all of it. I know that's not always the proper order or even close, but the full burst is fun to watch, especially when it's Panitom who's playing it. I have heightened expectations now for this tier because it's Nika, and Nika's ability to flex into these slightly more aggressive ability rotation style solo laner score is, I think, where he's made a name for himself in the past.
And we've also been seeing a lot of the tiers as of late, like whether it's been SCC or what have you, if they get locked in, you're typically, not only is it getting locked in pretty early, but immediately getting met by somebody that has knock-up immunity in their kit to really hold out their own in lane. I think that's going to cause a little bit of trouble here. A lot of easy pickups for the tier, a lot of opportunities for them to make those big plays, and that's where my mind is gravitating, is will we see those big plays? I asked that of them earlier, and they stepped up, right, with the Cthulhu. Tier's going to be a little more difficult to execute. Definitely things that work in your favor, though, right? You can play them up against, even with the Yemoja wall, although you might push them through. You have to be a little careful. I think that there's a lot of opportunities the Warriors might create for themselves that Nika can turn on its head.
Yep.
And so if he just has, like, one good tier game can really keep everything level.
Confirmed, it is Panitom on Thor, so it'll be SOT back on the Vamana over in the Soul Lane, as we figured it would be, but always good to get that extra confirmation. Remember, this one big. If the Oni Warriors win it, they are 2 games clear of the Jade Dragons over in the Chaos Division. If the Dragons win, they're in first place in the Chaos Division. A needed win here for the Jade Dragons to slow things down on the Oni Warriors side of the SPL. And we'll find out what happens at the end of this set with J-Mac, Mifflin, and Doug.
Big implications on this game early on in the phase for both of these teams. As mentioned, Oni Warriors, they win, they're undefeated, and they've got a pretty nice lead in the Chaos Division. Jade Dragons win, look at flip the tides just a little bit and get themselves kick-started as we move in towards the second half of the phase starting up next week. But it's all got to come down here now in game number 3. J-Mac, Mifflin, and Doug here to bring you the action for this one. And I kind of maybe want to go into the Soul Lane matchup just a little bit. Mifflin, SOT, strong performance, game number 1 on the Vamana. Looks really good, nigh unstoppable by the end of the game. Nika now going on to the tier, something in lane we probably won't see too much of. But talk to a little bit about maybe the impact that the two of them have as the late game starts going through, as we start getting into these later team fights.
Well, one's got massive kill pressure. That's Sot, because he can go into Colossal Fury and just stick to you with that build. With the double Katana pickup, Golden Blade, and Hastened. Especially with that Berserker Shield as well. But Nika brings stronger initiation. He can start the fight. He's going to threaten beads a little bit more consistently. He's a little bit more survivable in base stance, not nearly as reliant on that ultimate. So if SOT uses his ult in a 1v1 in mid, or gets caught in the jungle and is forced to retreat, then that Vamana really loses out on value. Whereas Tier, think of Lawbringer as like just a jump. It's just a leap, a CC immunity for you, but Tier already pretty CC immune thanks to that passive. 1 second, I believe, the max duration of any CC that can affect him. And then you just got the standard kit immediately afterwards. So one brings kill pressure and dive and backline space creation that way. The other one brings initiation and threat on relics.
Maybe some of that threat on relic from Nika could open the door for maybe Mike or LASBRA. You don't have beads, you get a Susano to jump on top of you. That's an easy pull back in. A Typhoon after, but starting out in the dual lane, big stun by Jake. Another one gets the beads, this time from Vo. Netrioid able to dash away. And net by the good graces of Awesome Jake, and a double stun twice. We'll make sure that Netrioid can live through.
It's so funny to see the evolution of Yemoja throughout the years. When she first came out, everyone's like, just spam the 1. That's how you get good. The pros are like, no, that's bad. Use the other abilities. And now we've come full circle. No, just spam the 1. It's really good. Getting that slow, that damage, and those stuns so disruptive, and removing those relics early could open up some doors.
He's gone by Panitom. Pulled back in, but no follow-up from Dardez this time around. But an early relic burn for essentially free. I mean, pull didn't come through from LASBRA on right away. Panitom tried to predict it, but now another fight in the dual lane. Jake's only got a few Omi to his name, enough to use that first ability a couple of times if need be, but instead one will be for a Riptide, and that'll bail the Warriors out.
Yeah, and expect to see a good deal of that Riptide used to avoid maybe a stun from PBM or the roots a little bit later on. Won't be good at repositioning PBM himself. Knock-up immunity when you're in the monolith or you have one of them out, so Terra immune to the displacement of Yemoja. Makes it a bit more difficult to lock her down with those ultimates too. So often we see River's Rebuke tossed up and throw out the Riptide and say, well, you can't go anywhere. That doesn't work against Terra. You'll be able to walk through it. So place those a little bit more with thought, I should say. Put a little bit more thought into the placement. Probably a better way to word it. Otherwise, though, for now, the dual lane, I imagine, stagnates. Pressure from Jake and Netrioid really good on wave. The ability to just keep him out of tower, very strong. But as far as kill pressure is concerned, you're probably favoring PBM and Vote. But kill pressure hard to come by when you're landing against someone who has no mana cost heals.
Speeds again, this time by Sot to get away from LASBRA. Panitom teleports in, but not much follow-up left to be had in the solo lane. That's now 2 sets of beads that LASBRA has threatened really just by existing in that general area. And curious enough, Mifflin, Nika hasn't elected to go for a relic just yet. I wonder what he might be thinking about going into. We see a lot of blink. Teleport still seems to at least be a go-to relic for the solo laners, but curious as to where Nika will go with that first relic.
So Nika has very low kill pressure onto Vamana, so you don't necessarily need a relic on first back. You can heat check the lane. Am I struggling? If yes, let's get teleport. I'm getting pressured pretty consistently. I'll get back to lane like that. If you're not getting pressured, maybe you say, oh, I've established a bit of a lead. I've pushed the waves into his tower. SOT's falling a little bit behind on experience. I can pick up a blink and utilize it to rotate out a lane. Let me go towards mid, see if I can get behind Pegon and push him into tower. So a smart decision from Nika, and one that we've seen in the past. I mean, this was the classic. If you're not really worried about CC coming your way, you're not going to walk out of base with beads, and you don't need teleport until you're already back in base, so you can reevaluate it later.
Well, Nika will go back now, having some golden pocket to spend up, about 1,900. We'll see what relic he ends up going with, and it will be Blink. Seems that he is just fine up against SOT. Panitom not really putting a lot of focus in that lane just yet, but we haven't really seen Panitom get active on the map as of yet. It's been a lot of LASBRA trying to take relics away. Panitom's beads are back up. Sot's still down for another 70 seconds, though. And the Jade Dragons really keeping a slower pace up against the Oni Warriors, really trying to keep this team at bay to try and push themselves through this early game.
Yeah, I wonder, where do the Jade Dragons get aggressive? Where do the Oni Warriors get aggressive and win? That's the primary question we have here on the cast, the fans at home. When do I look up, put this on my primary monitor?
When's the Thor dunk coming in?
When's the Thor dunk going to hit 3? When's Panitom going to start getting active? It's probably going to be a couple of minutes. Both junglers electing to go down the Transcendence path means that you're spending some time stacking up in the jungle. Both side lanes being largely safe means you're going to struggle a bit in that regard as well. So objectives could be the first real team fight, or it could be Nika. As I said earlier, a rotation from him could really start things up, whereas SOT needs a little bit more itemization. Pegon could just be here.
Fast flicker out from Pegon, but he's surrounded by 3. Nika's joined the party. Dunked in by Panitom, but he's missed nearly everything. Does have the spin and one tap of the hammer to make it a 1-for-1 trade, but LASBRA comes out with the first blood at the end.
That's tough, man. Pegon just caught out of position, trying to get aggressive on map, poke away, be annoying around that neutral farm, but Flicker is very low distance. Puts him out there. Dardez now locked in, but it's just Jake, and he has not got the damage on his own. Dardez forced to use those beads, but makes his way back to base safely. The Jade Dragons, I suppose, a bit happy with that trade. Kill placement, allocation, both junglers getting first. You're probably favoring Panitom a little bit in that situation, gets the immediate bounty onto LASBRA. Otherwise, where does that leave the mid laners? Surprisingly, it's Pegon with an experienced lead.
It's got to feel good for Mike and the Dragons as well to get that 2-minute plus cooldown off of Jake as well. The Awafa Rivers are back through, but Riptide, well, those are on a short cooldown comparatively. Boat does take 1, but holds on to the bead, dashes past it. Gets back to his tier 1. His Bastions won't be safe. Netrioid and Jake will be able to take those for free. Remove a little bit of that extra gold and those extra tower defenses off the map. Boat will be fine. Level 8 compared. Riptide goes through. Ultimate hits awesome Jake. LASBRA gonna try and get this one to silence. Slows things down. A little more damage onto Jake. Somebody's got to get it. Didn't want to have to use the Typhoon. Wouldn't have needed to. Vote has the fadeaway auto to take him out.
Hold on. The rest of the Oni Warriors are en route. Panitom doesn't have the ultimate just yet, but if he can just get there before that back is channeled by Vote, double tap could just get it done. Instead, spotted by a wave, immediate disengage. Actually sees on map. Dardez steps on that ward. Doesn't want to get caught in no man's land. So a phenomenal rotation from the mid laner, the Jade Dragons. Bails them out. That would have been a clean dive if Dardez isn't there. I'm sure Panitom willing to go in that 3v2. From the 3v3, there's a little bit more nuance, a little bit more entropy, and not something he was willing to get involved with.
especially with winning that 3v3 also involves that tier 1 tower, pumping out some extra damage early on. So Jake falls for the second kill for the Jade Dragons now, but still the gold lead in favor of the Oni Warriors, even despite the first blood from LASBRA and the second kill from Mike. So now, for the Jade Dragons, where does this leave them? Well, wondering where the Oni Warriors are, who have started up the Cold Fury. 4-man rotation over.
They got it.
And this will be a Gold Fury for the Oni Warriors. 800 gold lead, be damned. Let's bump that up to nearly 2K.
Yeah, that is such a fast pickup by the Oni Warriors. Easy. Heat check on the Gold Fury. Don't even be worried about the Pyromancer. That hasn't spawned in just yet. Simple. Blue buff invade, I suppose the best the Jade Dragons can do in that situation. SOT, I'm not so certain that he's far enough behind that he even cares just yet. So a massive win over the Oni Warriors. Now it's the Jade Dragons who are given a little bit of time where they can regroup, rethink. The Oni Warriors don't really have any difficult questions they can ask right now. It's a little too early in the game to start sieging towers. No Pyromancers, we already broke down, so should just be farm it up, play safe, for, at least for the next couple of minutes.
Mike rotating over. Gets the root onto Jake, trying to steal away the Scorpion. Does do so. It's a shield buff to the Jade Dragons. Vote can leisurely stroll over and pick that one up for himself, thanks to the good nature of Mike, bringing that on the ground for him. It's not quite enough yet to slow down the Warriors. This gold lead was already there before the Fury goes down. It gets pushed up a little bit more. LASBRA
hit him.
Connects to Pegon, but Panitom standing right by. No dive under the tower. Thankful for Pegon that his jungler was standing by.
Yeah, I'm surprised that LASBRA doesn't go for the teleport in there. Sees Panitom. Worried about the stun, but the arcane stance pull in. The stun was already used as well. You got enough damage from that ultimate, too, that you'd think an opportunity to go in. But it's early. The tower still hits hard, and LASBRA not willing to leave it up to risk. Goes ahead and is just happy to annoy Pegon. But if you want to break it down for numbers, that's blink from LASBRA and nothing to show for it.
Not instead. It's once again Pegon, who has been under a lot of fires, already taken a death, but still leading in XP over Dardez. Maybe LASBRA soaking a little bit of extra farm over in this mid lane, keeping Dardez just a bit behind. The Pyromancer on the way. Could be the next objective that we see the Oni Warriors fight around, with Fury still down for about 2 more minutes. The Jade Dragons might have to keep some vision across this map, because the Oni Warriors, they've shown that they'll strike at any time. They don't have to wait for a pick. They don't have to wait for a special moment. It's, hey, we got 3 people. Let's group up and go for an objective.
Or we got 3 people hovering nearby. Let's jump into a fight, right? That is an aggressive leap from Netrioid. Should indicate to the Jade Dragons, yes, there are more Oni Warriors nearby, so the Dragons don't get overzealous. If that's me, I'm seeing red. How dare this guy jump at me? I'm gonna get onto him, but not the case this time. The Jade Dragons keeping it slow, keeping their head on right. I'm thinking on the map, where do you put pressure? The Oni Warriors seem to think it's this purple buff spawning very shortly. PBM, LASBRA, all here. Dardez should be able to join the fight around the same time as Pegon as well. But in just showing pressure, create the space and knock down the tier 1.
Panitom tries to get some damage on Vote and Laz, only ends up hitting the camp, and even with a Riptide, that's not enough for Jake to take anything away. SOT not only secures his own blue buff, but actually ends up stealing away Nika's on the right side.
Into the laugh
laughed
combo.
At him too.
Yeah, that's messed up.
The buff steal to laugh/taunt combo. A combo is
Took
old
the
as
neutral
time.
too?
Man,
He's not getting the Totem of Skulls. That's not his.
Maybe
he's getting the Totem of Skulls.
Dude, this is the mental battle that Sot's winning up against Nika. Man, Sot's done it all. Umbrella Ring on the fadeaway. He's going to take it away.
He's so cool, J-Mac. He's just so cool.
Cool guys don't look at Totem of Skulls.
Why would you? I mean, and consider the pace this lane as well. I mean, Sot has been left alone for the most part. We've seen a couple of rotations from LASBRA. Net him a slight lead. Nika, that is, but wouldn't believe it looking at the current state of things. Wouldn't believe it looking at the pressure on right. Poke into LASBRA, drop him down to half. No defense potential from the Jade Dragons. The Oni Warriors, they take the Pyromancer, and it just happens so fast.
They just do it, man. That's just their nature. Is, do we have bodies? Yes. Whatever's in front of us is going either down if it's an objective, to the grayscale if it's a god, or we're at the very least going to send them back to Fountain. Oni Warriors, they knock the Pyromancer down. That adds another neutral objective to their pocket. And now with the Oni Fury spawned in, all it takes is the Warriors to step up with enough confidence. Could force the Jade Dragons' hand around an objective.
Could do. You've got full resources on the side of the Oni Warriors. Not a single relic is down. Every single ultimate available as well. So can we get a look at gold in pocket real quick? That should be an indicator. Gold in hand. Just about even across the board. So no one's sitting on a significant power spike as of now. That means the Oni Warriors could likely go ahead and pull the objective. And Soul Laners don't lie, J-Mac. Seems like the Jade Dragons and the Warriors privy and willing to defend and fight around this left-hand side. SOT first on the scene, but Nika not too far behind him. Maybe it's a pick that could open the door.
Netrioid.
That's tough.
Fades away. LASBRA loses out on beads against Panitom. That's the first relic of the fight down.
Can't even call it a fight, can you?
Just a little scrap, little tussle. He walks up and throws a single left hook. Connects, and LASBRA says, all right, I'm done, man. That was a good shot you threw. And now the Jade Dragons are the ones on the back foot at the fight.
Yeah, the Jade Dragons now really do have to play a bit more defensively. Any bit of CC that heads LASBRA's way could result in a death. Nika in first, finds Pegon, but that damage is low.
Oni Warriors take down the Fury. Jake, all by himself, gets caught out against the Jade Dragons, but now SOT up against Dardez, trying to find a path back out. Will have Colossal Fury to go up and chase anybody else out. Jake trades his life away for a Fury. Tale as old as time. Support for objective. Small win for the Oni Warriors.
You want to call that? I'd call that major win, right? Jake's already ahead, too, so the time off map, not spent farming, doesn't matter. We'll see if PBM, before Jake respawns, is even able to catch up. This is where the swing is. Jade Dragon's able to grab at least a tier 1 tower with that time, but I think that's where it ends. Meanwhile, Netrioid's farming up. He's going to shove a wave in the tower, head back to base, be safe. And it's the Oni Warriors once more. It's just this fast pace. They're there at the Gold Fury first, so they catch LASBRA, who's still setting up, forces beads, makes the Jade Dragons play a reactionary style as opposed to looking for the initiation themselves. And the Oni Warriors benefit greatly. Sure, Jake dies, but I don't think that a single Oni Warrior cares.
Oh, what? Just
that's double tap.
What? Double tap plus double ice combo from Pegon. Dardez is out for 30 seconds. Tier 1 that the Dragons just got has been returned in
tier
kind.
2 as well?
And maybe a couple of kills. PBM trying to juke as fast as he can. The wall is there, but not the hammer. And it's LASBRA with a massive Typhoon comboed with Vote. Pegon and Panitom removed in an instant.
Yeah, we needed LASBRA on the Jade Dragons to get involved in a big way, and that's exactly what the doctor had ordered. I thought the Oni Warriors free pick on a PBM immediately into a tier 2, but when Typhoon connects with actually everyone from the Oni Warriors, not much you could do to stop them. After that, the Jade Dragons a counterpunch to find a small win on their tier 2 tower. Meanwhile, though, and I don't want it to go without seeing, SOT knocked down a tier 1 on right, so it's still a small objective win for the Oni Warriors, opening up the map even further. And we're starting to approach that Pyromancer respawn. I imagine the Jade Dragons show up to that to defend. If anybody loses a life there, could immediately turn into a Fire Giant. Things are precarious. Advantage over to the Oni Warriors in the next team fight. That gold lead is significant. You can see it reflected in the builds as well. Panitom has perhaps the most valuable tier 2 an assassin could hope for. So what's the best defense? It's good offense. Jade Dragons on the scene first. Take the Pyro. Can't pick them, can't force a fight if there's nothing there.
LASBRA is sticking over to the left side of the map just to get some farm for himself, recognizing his team was starting up that objective. The Jade Dragons have now answered back to the Oni Warriors. The Fury from earlier traded out with a Pyromancer for the Dragons. A 2-for-1 trade under that mid-tier 2 tower. Only Dardez ended up losing his life at the tier 1. And now the Jade Dragons with a little more wind under their sails after finding an objective like that, but even still, it hasn't fully slowed down the Oni Warriors. They're still nursing themselves about a 3,000 gold lead, even despite that Pyromancer going for the Dragons.
Yeah, the only real silver linings now for the Jade Dragons individually, you've got level parity now in mid. Dart has been able to catch up to Pegon. That's significant. A level advantage to LASBRA as well. Panitom just now hitting 15. LASBRA been resting comfortably at 16. But take a peek at LASBRA's build. Slight departure from the standard. We've already broken down the Brawler's Beat Stick, but one of the core items for Susano since the advent of Susano, since he was added to the game, has been that Hydra's lament. Auto attack cancels. He's so good at it. You've got that pull into auto combo. Everything just seems to synergize well with that item. Instead, it's Serrated Edge in third slot. An item that had essentially been taking a back seat, it feels like, for the last couple of weeks. It's still a phenomenal stat stick. Get your penetration, your movement speed, your lifesteal, it's all there. But it hasn't exactly got the best passive for LASBRA.
That's teleported by LASBRA. Dunk down by Panitom, just off the mark. Dardez able to leap away from there. But what does this do? You took a set of beads away from one, you push Dardez out, and the Oni Warriors go right back to the objective. Primal Fury, half HP. PVM is here. Seen a lot of Terra steals, but might not get a chance to see one here. A reset of the objective. It's going back and forth. Hasn't been able to heal out the Warriors. Do get the Fury in a fast retreat out. Mike too low to stand by, but Sot's not going to stop him. He will charge right in. Colossal Fury to jump up and bat down some damage onto Mike. Is there enough sustain for this Terra? Does Mike have enough distance to go? He does indeed. Sot just holding back the Dragons for the rest of his team to battle out.
Yeah, nobody from the Jade Dragons able to shut down SOT, and SOT similarly not able to finish off any of those kills, not just yet. Maybe if he finishes up the build with Hastened, things are a little bit different, and if history's any indicator, it will be Hastened in next slot for him. Already so survivable. A little bit more damage and chase potential might just be what the Doctor ordered, but no! Breastplate to finish out the build for SOT. Maybe a little bit of defense, some utility there. Concern perhaps with the burn potential of LASBRA and Vote. But he's been playing so aggressively up until this point, and I thought already so tanky. But a bit more offense could have served him well. Instead, SOT, different eyes for his second game on the Vamana.
I think maybe Spectral Armor, if he's going to be going up against Vote, built into some crit already.
Could be.
Still has it picked up now towards his second item of crit. Maybe an answer for that. SOT may be worried about the burn potential, as you mentioned, from LASBRA and Vote. To be determined where Sot goes with his final item. It was the Hasten Katana last time, as you mentioned, allowed him to chase down, deal out a decent bit of damage, but now it's Fire Giant territory at the very least. We crest over the 20-minute mark in the game. Warriors have a lead. Last time the way they were able to get fire was just brute force started up. Get the fire going, force the Dragons to step forward.
I mean, every objective that has gone to the Warriors so far, this game has been a clear recipe for success. Have Panitom find wherever LASBRA is, burn his beads, fall back to the objective because LASBRA has to play a bit more demure without that relic. 30 seconds till he's got the beads back up means that if Panitom is able to recreate that success, instead of forcing beads, could just get the life from the jungler, the Jade Dragons. Pyromats are pulled. Dragons nowhere to be seen. Instead, they're going to wait on the bigger of the two objectives. Don't want to risk it. Or on the Pyro itself, not with this deficit. The Oni Warriors now, Runic Bomb in pocket, matched by the Jade Dragons, so neither one a significant advantage to secure. But poke potential? Seems like the Oni Warriors confident in that. And any bit of poke that lands on the Warriors, well, there it is on your screen. Jake will just heal it all back up.
Nothing significant. Now the Warriors starting up fire. Crit online for Netrioid. Triple crit at that. This Fire Giant starting to go down quickly. You've got a Merlin as well if you really want to speed up the process, but the Oni Warriors not going to stand inside the pit any longer. SOT walks up, immediately dashes back out, and immediately to the Bracer as well that was dropped down by Jake, standing confidently in enemy lines.
Yeah, if anybody chases SOT, they're running into a fully enhanced Oni Warriors core. So I like that Bracer. Good for vision. Good for chase potential. Keep your eyes on LASBRA, though. He's got his beads back up. And Blink as well. If you can catch anyone isolated, could be big. Netrioid the target. But what have you done, LASBRA? Have you done too much?
Up 3 around him.
He's
3
done
hit
too
by the
much.
Typhoon, and a little too much attempting there by LASBRA, but unsuccessful. Does get both relics away from Netrioid, so small silver lining there, but that might be the only one that he has for the Jade Dragons, because the entirety of the Oni Warriors have now reset themselves to Fire Giant, and there's no contest back from the Dragons.
That is a classic jungle woe. You see this great initiation. You've got the damage output if those relics aren't up, and then they get used, and you think, man, we've been fighting for 5 minutes, dancing around this Fire Giant. Nobody's able to burn through those relics. Unfortunate for LASBRA, at least able to burn through them now, so on respawn could try and do the exact same thing, this time though without his own beads or Blink. Panitom up to the air, playing scout. Sees 3 in mid, 2 in right. Goes in mid.
What? Is he going to full combo LASBRA?
Dave,
No
that's how you do the
beads.
combo, by the way.
No beads available. 100-0 there for Panitom. Pegon almost taken out. Mike trying to chase him out. The slow autos. Mike has the chance to kill Pegon. He's going to need some back
Does
from
he?
Netrioid. There's a lot of crits.
He does not.
Not enough. With Netrioid showing up, Mike falls. The Phoenix in tow. LASBRA before that. And the Oni Warriors can now march over to mid.
Such a disrespectful combo from Panitom. I'm still reeling, man. Look at him. He's still smiling in the player cam there. I mean, classic. Walk out of base, don't have beads, don't have a chance. Not against the Thor. Now when he's stacked up this much damage. Dunk, auto, hammer, auto, wall, auto. And LASBRA dead before the last bit of damage even connects. Clean from the Oni Warriors. Exposing the Titan now from the Jade Dragons. Right side bird taken. Mid tier 2 taken. Gold Fury not taken just yet, but will be taken very shortly. And the Oni Warriors have completely opened up this game. What a massive swing for them.
10,000 gold, 8k XP. Mattering less at this point as players start to hit level 20, but still not at level 20 is Nika and LASBRA. On the side of Jade Dragons, the attempted hero play by Laz to kick things off for the Dragons goes south for him. Respawns, walks out of base, gets sent right back to the grayscale courtesy of Panitom with a full combo of the Thor. So now for the Jade Dragons, defense, potentially. Still only a minute left on Fire Giant, so may not see another Phoenix Siege just yet, but with a full stack, a full force of 5, Mifflin, how does defense look for Jade Dragons up against the Warriors?
Their defense is not weak. PBM really strong on counter initiation. Earthen Fury for the defensive capacity of his team. Dardez should be able to keep those minion waves at bay. We had talked about Susano's siege potential. If you're good on siege, you're generally good on counter siege as well. It's just that AoE damage, the good CC from Typhoon. All those things could make it difficult for the Oni Warriors to push their way in. If the Jade Dragons are there in time, and that's a big if now. 2 backs starting to be channeled, but is the bird going to be dead before they get there?
Nearly taken out. One more by Netrioid. You can't body block those auto attacks. PBM goes into the middle of 4, but he's not by himself. Now he is. LASBRA is out of the fight. PBM short to follow. Dunk in by Panitom. Gets the beads.
Wow.
But the River's Rebuke cuts off the only escape path that the Jade Dragons had in. The Oni Warriors. It took them a while in game 2, but it won't take them long in game number 3. It is just Mike left alive. They've got to fight against 4 of the Oni Warriors, and it will not be enough. Triple kill for Netrioid, a couple for Panitom, and the set and undefeated streak continues for the Warriors.
Egg on my face, breaking down the 5-on-5 defense. It simply doesn't happen. 2 members of the Jade Dragons attempt to knock down the Pyromancer, give themselves a runic bomb and maybe a fighting chance. Instead, make it back to base a little bit too slow, get a bit overconfident in the chase down afterward, run into a Phoenix that's no longer there. It's not helping you in the fight. And in the 5-on-5, the Oni Warriors had every advantage.
We were wondering, you know, is Yemoja still good with all these changes that have come through? I think that one ultimate right there maybe solidifies just how powerful that guy is, maybe just why so many teams have been putting priority to ban. I think up until this point, only 6 times that God has gotten through. 5 of those 6 have been wins. Well, now with game number 7 of that God, 6 wins in the column, and I think Jake has solidified his spot as being a top Yemoja player.
I mean, not only is Yemoja good, but Jake has been having a phenomenal year so far as well. I mean, the individual play from him, I think, deserves every bit of credit that we can laud upon him, because he has been a recipient of a lot of criticism from the fans at home, especially in the last couple of years. Jake, clearly a contender for one of the best supports in the league right now.
Question no more how good this Oni Warriors team. A fast-paced game number 3 nets them their win. Their undefeated streak continues. That's it from us on the cast. We'll throw it to the desk to break it down.
There's just something different about this Oni Warriors team, and it's so hardcore for teams to break the Oni Warriors and Jade Dragons. They get some momentum early in this set. But really, it seems like after game 2 and then on to game 3, the Oni Warriors were just able to figure out their own game plan. And it was that run-it-down style in game 3 that ends up winning the day.
Yeah, a lot of good Thor dunks. A lot of, I mean, they mentioned it at the end. Very good ult by Jake. Sometimes you just press forward. It works out really well for your team. And maybe it's oversimplifying it. But I think the team closes out a lot there. Good damage burn coming from Pegon. I think the stars align for him throughout here. And again, we
Aegis.
get to see a lot. Now, I'm going to have to go back and look at the Izanami KDA, the god doing incredibly well, right? I just think you get a lot of things that despite some deficits, I mean, you look at that, right? 2 kills down, and you're still 7,000 gold up. I think that was one of those moments. I mean, it reminds me of the Kings, right? And several times where the Kings will be down by 10, 5 kills, whatever you call the other number, and then they'll be up several thousand gold because they're playing the map a little bit better than you. They're finding the objectives that matter. And then, much like we've seen in the Kings games of past, the Warriors do the exact same thing. Not only do they get that massive gold lead despite a kill deficit, they turn that gold lead into the kills necessary to win the game. And so showcasing, I think, where some of the priority is for them and being able to win the fights that matter the most. And then you just get to kind of kick the door down to the base and march on in. That one's just a nice way to end the game. 25 minutes in, you don't necessarily have to play too long. You're not stressing about an EFG. Things are just going well for you. And with a 4-0-1, I think there for Netrioid, you get the nice 4-1-5 for Panitom. A lot of really good play from the Warriors. And maybe it wasn't like just kill stacking up into the 20s, but they got the kills that mattered, and they played the map incredibly well.
Oni Warriors did a lot with a little that game, respective to some of the high kill games that we've normally seen these teams play. Remember, there could be a slight rivalry building up between these two teams. The kickoff tournament was more for just seeding in the draft show and no implications as far as actual standings, things like that.
Yeah.
Here in Phase 1 of the SPL is really just drafting the two divisions. Oni Warriors, they step out there, they 3-0 the Jade Dragons. They're in the same, or they're going to play against each other a couple of times throughout Phase 1. Oni Warriors have their number, it seems. Jade Dragons win a game, but the Oni Warriors win 2 and the set, and we'll talk about the standings implications here in just a moment. Panitom had the Thor game on lock in game number 3, and he's standing by with J-Mac for the post-game interview.
That's right, I got Panitom Jungler for the Oni Warriors standing by with me. First off, congrats on the win, Panitom, up against Dragons.
Thank you.
Now, I asked Mike kind of at the start of the set, coming to the pregame, how important is this game? He said it's a very important one, trying to at least get the one up over you guys to start. So I'll kind of ask the same question to you, how important it is now that you've gotten this win over the Dragons for further implications in the season?
I feel like it's pretty important because now we only have to beat the Ravens on our group to say we are a top 2 team at least on our group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, starting off 4-0 to kind of kick things off up in there. Definitely chaos inside of your division, and definitely maybe the epitome of chaos, but it really felt like your team kind of dialed it back the first 2 games. Has this just been maybe a nature or a byproduct of how chaotic y'all have been that you're trying to reel things back in a little bit more recently?
Yeah, we know we play so aggressive for kills, and we are trying to keep it disciplined. Every 5 minutes I have to play chill, play back. We can do objectives, and yeah, it's pretty much more chaos every game.
Yeah, kind of talk to me about a little moment there in game number 3. We see LASBRA try and go for the play onto Netrioid. Everybody collapses in, takes him down. You go to the sky and you see LASBRA. You see red in your eyes. You see LASBRA walk out of that base alone.
Yeah. Okay. I was actually is it troll if I ult him on the fountain? I really was no, I think it's good. So I just pressed 4 and I saw him going mid, and I was sure, he's a kill. Then, yeah.
So you asked your team if it was troll if I go in and just try and dunk him at Phoenix,
yeah,
and they said
absolutely.
no, go for it.
Yeah, I mean they're trolls, so we have the same mental, I guess.
Well, it seemed to work out real well for your team. Panitom, congratulations on the win, on the continued undefeated streak. We'll let you get back with your team, and we'll throw it back to the desk to keep it breaking down.
My goodness, just high spirits in the Oni Warriors team booth, and why wouldn't there be, Core? Because remember, this is a team that the casters had a really hard time placing early on in the year. And what we've seen is that the only concerns we ever had was exactly how they would come together as a squad, right? Where would the shot calling come from? Can they play as a cohesive unit? We knew they were talented. They have come together so effectively, and it seems like even if communication isn't always there, they play the same type of game mentally, that they're always just on the same page. That is our second of 3 games on this Sunday. We'll have one more to round things out here, Gore, and it is the Styx Ferryman up against the Highland Ravens.
I'm really excited for this one to get a little taste of the Ferryman, right? I mentioned that earlier. I think that playing today is going to showcase what they had to offer, push the Warriors towards 3. And with the Ravens taking a stumble yesterday, maybe there's another opportunity for them to try and find a good win for themselves. I'm also looking into next week a little bit, and I know that's a little preemptive, but specifically because the Ravens have this matchup, their next matchup after this is the Warriors. And so there's definitely some room for them to climb not only in their own group, but as Panitom had just said, they're looking towards that matchup because then they'll have played, that'll be their third out-of-division match. And if they get that one, they're going to be in a pretty solid spot in the standings. I mean, it would take a lot to catch up to them from the other teams. And so we're looking at potentially next week being able to start seeing some of these teams get themselves into, either into a position, especially depending on how this next set goes, where they might be looking at first place pretty quickly, right? Yep. And so that's, I think, what the Warriors and the Kings are thinking about. If you're the Ravens in this next set, and of course the Ravens next week against the Warriors, you should be on wins, right? Because you want to keep yourself in that conversation in your own division. You want to make sure you have it, so you have to beat the Ferryman here. You want to beat the Warriors there. If not for anything, then to just stack up your own column. Maybe you can ruin somebody else's dreams in the process if that's what you want to do. But definitely, I think where their mind is at.
Gore and the Oni Warriors, that Panitom in that post-game interview expressed how important the matchup against the Ravens was going to be. They will play the Ravens next weekend. Yep. Ravens will have the Styx Ferryman to deal with before then, though. And that matchup coming up right after this. So Styx Ferryman, Highland Ravens to round out our weekend. Coming up next.